Hello, 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 folks. How are we doing today? Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope everybody is having a good weekend so far. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes. I don't know about you all, but we finally got some snow here where I live. So, woke up to a beautiful wintry morning. And of course, I didn't pull my car into the garage yesterday, so my car is covered in snow, but that's okay. At least it looks pretty. Did anyone do anything fun this weekend? Dia says, tomorrow I start my first day as a full stack React engineer. Oh my golly gee. Wow. That's incredible. Great job, Dia. Full stack React engineer. Um, so you're building front end, back end in React, or what is that? I'm really curious. What does that mean? First try. Holy crap. That's amazing work. Yeah, what does full stack React engineer mean? Like um what does that look like for you, if you don't mind sharing? All right, let's get so you can see my face, and yeah, we'll talk about this. All right. Hey, oh, my hair is uh wow, yeah, front end, back end. They're gonna put me on the back end at first. Oh, I don't even have my light on either. Jeez. What is the matter? All right, there we go. They're going to put me on the back end at first, integrating third party services like Stripe and such. Wow, that's so cool, man. Yeah, welcome to the back end. Uh, that's what I do all day, and I'm sure you'll love it. I don't work with React, but that's really awesome that you get to work with React because I know that's a really that's the in thing right now, and so you're getting a great foot in the door with a popular product. Um, the hilarious thing is the company is a software development agency that makes apps for clients, basically 100 devs. There you go. Way to go. So you had all of the appropriate background, and you were fully prepared to just step right into the to that industry. That's amazing. Wow. So if you don't, this is actually awesome because this is basically what we're going to be talking about today is, story crafting and interview prep. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you don't mind asking, so Dia, what do you feel helped you most succeed in acing the process essentially and getting a job on your first try? What do you feel was the most beneficial thing for you to have in that interview? I love that we're starting out on this awesome foot. While you're typing, I'm going to take my hair down because this ponytail is not working. That's slightly better. Hey, Madeline. Yeah, it's afternoon for me, but yeah, I wouldn't be this chipper in the morning, let me tell you. Ah, okay. So yeah, Dia says, so helping others in the catch up crew helped me tremendously. I can't help unless I know something well. Yeah, yep, exactly. That's a great point, right? It's essentially it's just spaced repetition. If you're helping other people, you're practicing the things you've learned, right? You're practicing by doing, you're practicing by teaching. And so helping others, whether in a formal or informal capacity, is one of the best ways you can reinforce your knowledge. Hey, Bigness, welcome. Good to see everybody today. Yeah, doing it over and over and it sticks. So, yeah, for those of you who just joined us, which many people just did, We were just talking that Dia the Kez, they got a job as a full stack React engineer with an agency, building full stack React stuff for clients. And they got it on their very first interview. And we were just talking about why they felt they were successful in that interview. And they said that, well, it was practice, just practicing concepts, helping others, practicing, not just practicing by reading something over and over again or whatever, or doing things in a vacuum, but actually helping others to learn those concepts, which then reinforce them for themselves, which that's literally why I do this, why I stream, because that's why I started streaming, because it absolutely helps reinforce stuff. Brian, yeah, okay. I thought you were probably Brian. I read your post on the Discord, your celebration post, which yeah. Again, congratulations. I figured you were Brian, but I didn't want to assume. Oh, first time catching me live, Bigness. That's awesome. Yeah, so today is going to be a fairly informal stream. But what we're going to do is, I really enjoyed a couple weeks ago on the Discord how Leon was doing some, story crafting, helping folks, getting folks up on the Discord stage, and basically saying, bring me your past, right? And we'll see if we can craft a good positive story out of it, the kind of story you can tell in an interview. Like, who am I? What do I bring to the table? What are my advantages, and that kind of thing. And so what I'm hoping is that I can do that for some of you today. I did a little bit of that during the Discord streams, where there were more people who wanted assistance than Leon could possibly help, and so I did a little bit of that via text in the chat. But I would like to do it again here in a more relaxed environment, fewer people. So if anybody would like some help with crafting their story, I'm happy to do that for you today. Madeline says, I've got an interview on Tuesday. That's awesome. Hoping to pick up some last minute tips today. That's great. What type of position would it be for, Madeline? First try. Nice, Dia. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, so I'm happy to help folks do some story crafting today. If anybody has some past experience and they're wanting to break into tech, and you're just not quite sure how to present that experience in the best light in an interview. Maybe you have no previous tech experience. In which case, those are always fun for me to work with, because you bring a lot more to the table than you realize when your background is not in tech, especially if you're in retail, in the service industry, in the trades. You've got a lot of skills that you might not even realize that you have. Yeah. Madeline says they've got an interview full stack at a local startup, super small team, cute office downtown, working with Shopify apps. Oh, great. Yeah. So you'll be going into an office and a small team. That's awesome. That means you'll get a lot of one-on-one interaction, a lot of really hands-on experiences. I'm feeling good about it. I actually reached out to one of the devs for a coffee chat on LinkedIn. Turns out it was the owner. So he invited me for an interview after we chatted on LinkedIn for a few. Okay, I love it. So that's another great thing. We're bringing up some great practical skills for being successful in an interview. So another one is networking, which Madeline has just demonstrated right there. They were reaching out, they were contacting local businesses on social media and all that sort of thing, and they happened to contact the owner of a local business, who then got them a direct connection for an interview after a coffee chat. I mean, honestly, that's the best way you can get in. And for those who might be new to the job hunt, or are not quite sure how to proceed, you might be tempted to just go and volume, right, go and apply for as many jobs as possible, throwing out applications left and right. And as Madeline demonstrates, really the better thing to do is to be strategic and targeted with your approach, right? Is to contact specific businesses that you're interested in, contacting those specific people at those businesses, who can then give you sort of a lifeline and inroads into that business, and hook you up with somebody that can get you an interview. Yeah. Dia says, I'm an evangelist for Lunch Club. Oh, okay. I got an internship and job offer from meeting up with people. Lunch Club. So is Lunch Club a specific like site? Is it a specific website, or are you talking more about just like those types of clubs like Meetup and stuff like that that just kind of meet up and network? It's a website. Okay, I hadn't heard of that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So everybody, check out Lunch Club, so that can help with your networking. And Madeline brings up another great point. They say, once I stopped being embarrassed about reaching out for coffee chats with people, I started getting replies. If they don't want to talk to you, who cares? Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just reach out, and then what is the worst that could happen? A lot of people are really nervous about reaching out to people online. But if you can think about it logically, what is the worst thing that can happen? They say no, they don't respond, then fine, that's it. There's plenty more people to reach out to. Mavi says, okay, so Lunch Club, it's a website. Rufio said they used it a ton. Okay. I'll definitely have to check it out then. I'm going to hydrate. You make your profile, put your interests, your available schedule. Then, got a hair in my mouth now. Oh, sorry. You make your profile, put your interests, your available schedule. Then Lunch Club pairs you up in virtual chats with people from all over the world. Wow. That's rad. I want that. Sounds super fun. I want to try that now. So also another point, just practicing your conversation skills with people in like a low stakes environment. So a lot of people are really nervous about how they're going to perform in like just conversation, how they're going to come across to other people, right? Like how are you going to, but what if I come across as really nervous, or what if I come across as, uncomfortable or unsure? Well, like with everything else, a great way to get better at casual conversation is something like Lunch Club, where you just chat with people. You practice, you hone your skills, you make mistakes, you get feedback from others in an environment that is not a job interview. So then hopefully that can help you feel more comfortable over time as you get more practice. Thank you for sharing that, Dia. Yeah. Ooh, okay. So Coding DPT wants a little assistance, which is absolutely why we are here today. They say, hey, Mayan, any advice for a physical therapist who has been a stay at home mom for over a year? Yeah, okay. So, physical therapy. So, any position where you're working with the public is like huge, because working with the public is hard. It is so difficult. I've had roles in the past where I have worked with the public. I was a receptionist for a while. And man, you never know what you're going to get, right? So, you have, just by the benefit of working with the public, you have communication skills. You have the ability to read emotions and to determine, the best way to approach someone with very little input from them, right? You immediately have to go up to a patient, and you have to get that patient to trust you enough to, let you literally put your hands on their, like on their body, on their arms, on their legs, and manipulate them and give them the trust to know that you like know what's best for them, right? So you have the ability um, to read emotions, to show professionalism. You have the ability to diagnose. So you're essentially when you're a physical therapist, you're troubleshooting the human body, right? It's no different than troubleshooting code or something like that. A lot of times when you see an error on the screen with code, you have very little information that's given to you. You might have an error message, but it's like a timeout has occurred or whatever. It's usually not going to be super helpful in itself. And so what you have to do is you have to know where to look to find the other context that you need to frame that error and then troubleshoot it. So let's say, you get an error in the terminal when you're trying to launch your app, right? And you're like, I don't know what this is, but you read the text and you see it's related to MongoDB. Okay, well then it's probably my connection string, and so you go to the connection string and you update it. And so what essentially you're doing is you've applied that knowledge already to the human body, right? The person says my elbow hurts. Okay, Where's the context? You have to know the rest of the context about that person's body. Maybe they are an athlete and so they put a lot of strain on that elbow. Maybe they sit at a desk all day and so it's something that's repetitive, right? Repetitive, some kind of repetitive strain injury. And so you have troubleshooting abilities already, and that's a tremendously valuable skill to have in tech and software development. So you have interpersonal skills, you have emotional intelligence, you can invoke trust in others, trust in the most intimate sense, right? Like I'm not just going to let anybody come up and like touch me. It's got to be someone that I implicitly trust and value their knowledge. So you have the ability to invoke trust. You have the ability to troubleshoot. Um, and then also, I would say that you have the ability to prioritize, given that you took time to, be a stay-at-home mom for your kids. I'm sure there were decisions that went into that, right? There were financial considerations. Is it cheaper to stay home with the kids or pay for daycare, childcare, that kind of thing? And so you have the ability to prioritize and make very important and consequential decisions for yourself and for others. So yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely troubleshooting the human body, and which is a tremendous skill to have. As Fafin said, you know, the interpersonal skills too is not something to overlook. Interpersonal skills are so undervalued by a lot of really technical people. Absolutely, yeah, I can talk for ages about that. We don't build many things solo. We work in teams for everything. Yeah. So a lot of people have the misconception that when you're going into tech and you're going into programming and even into the back end. I mean, I've joked about it before, is that, oh, in the back end, we don't work with customers. You don't got to know how to talk to people and all that stuff. And that's really not true because you're going to be working with coworkers all the time. And the more efficiently you can interface with those coworkers, the better team you can build with those coworkers, the better product you'll produce. You'll produce it quicker, more efficiently, which produces value for your employer. Um, so yeah, interpersonal skills incredibly valuable. It's a misconception that devs don't have to have interpersonal skills. Um, yeah, and Angular sometimes you do build. So I build solo too. A lot of the projects that I show here on stream, I don't build them with you all. I build them first on my own, and then I come here on stream and I walk through them with you. But if you are working for a company, um, any other situation where you're not self-employed, you're going to have to work with other people. And so, yes, it's perfectly possible to build things solo, but you're going to have an advantage if you can also work with other people, right? If you can do both, if you can operate in both worlds, you're going to be cherry. Yep. Nelium says, okay, welcome to the chat, Nelium. They say, so first off, before we go to the next person, coding DPT, does that help you? Does that help highlight some things in your story that you can maybe tell to, sell your skills a little bit more? I want to make sure that you feel like you're on a better foot now. Okay, awesome, good. Should put on some chapstick. My lips are dry. One moment, I'm going to hydrate. All right, Nelium. So Nelium says, I feel like my story is too disjointed. I have 2 music degrees, wow, and currently pay the bills, waiting tables, and professional photography. I feel like it's seen as uncommitted to have so many disparate interests. I would disagree. I would say that, so first off, your background, music. So I actually I do music as well. I'm a pianist and a singer. Um, and so music is excellent for creating logical frameworks in your brain. If you're a musician, you're not only creative, but you're also very good at seeing connections and sensing patterns, because you have to, music is all about patterns, right? Music is all about patterns and harmonizing and creating logical connections between themes and motifs. And so music background, especially like a professional music background, it sounds like you have, with degrees and all that jazz, you've learned the technical side of music as well. And so excellent logic skills, creativity skills, and pattern recognition. Those are huge things that a musical background will give you. So you currently pay the bills, waiting tables, and professional photography. Again, both of those are very public facing roles. So working in retail, gosh, waiting tables. I feel like that is the most um, that brings so many skills together. So waiting tables, you have, again, you have to have emotional intelligence. You have to be able to prioritize when you have, four tables, all of them needing their drinks refilled. You have to communicate with back of house when the dishes are ready. You have to know when to take the orders, when to, say, give us 5 more minutes, that type of thing. So you have this tremendous list of priorities in your head, and you are balancing customer satisfaction with the needs of the back of the house. How is the food going? Are we behind? Are we ahead? you know Special dishes, special requirements, special diets, all that sort of thing. So that's a tremendous amount of prioritization and stress management. I know that front of house and back of house jobs in kitchens are incredibly stressful. So you have to know how to manage that stress in hopefully a healthy way. I know there's a lot of, sometimes some unhealthy stress management that goes on, but still you have to keep yourself going, right? So you're great at stress management, prioritization, emotional intelligence, communication, right? In a loud and noisy restaurant, communicating with customers effectively to make sure that their needs are met, especially when things like dietary restrictions are involved. So communication again, um, and also just math, calculations, calculating bills, calculating tips, all that sort of thing, and professional photography as well. So no, so my cousin is actually a professional photographer. And the people skills that she has are just incredible because photography is difficult, right? You have lighting, you have composition, you're dealing with, potentially sometimes human and animal subjects, you're dealing with babies, you're dealing with brides, you're dealing with grooms, you're dealing with mother-in-laws, all those things that, so can sometimes be incredibly difficult to wrangle together to create a good product in the end. And photography is an extremely technical skill. I've seen some of the stuff that my cousin does, and it is wild how she has all these settings and like white balances and color balances and lighting, time of day, weather, sunshine, all these things that make a huge difference in the end product. So um, I'm going to catch up with chat here and make sure I haven't missed anything. But I mean, those are just a few of the skills that you have. Um, and I wouldn't say that uncommitted is no, I wouldn't ever say you are uncommitted. I would say you're incredibly committed. You're so committed that you're able to balance waiting tables and professional photography at the same time and prioritize what you see get done at any given point, balance appointments with your shifts. So, no, I would say you're not uncommitted. You're 110% committed. I would very much disagree. Yeah, problem solving is huge in waiting tables. 100%. Prioritization and problem solving, both of which are extremely valuable in tech. Those are things that you literally bring to the table. Yeah, I don't know that I could. I don't know that I could be a wait staff. It just seems like it would be too much to juggle, and I really respect those that do it. Yeah, and thank you everybody else for your contributions as well. You're all spot on. I'm reading through them right now. Hey, Akechi, welcome. I'm doing well. I hope you are as well. We're having a lot of fun story crafting today for folks in chat. And yeah, if you're in chat and you feel like I've missed something about someone's background that they provided, feel free to jump in as well. And you all are. I appreciate it. Perflaw has an interesting contribution. They say, you studied music. I used to work at a music data company. They were a big data company, but the interviewer asked me about who's my favorite artist, can I play any instrument, etc. Maybe you could browse some music tech related companies too. That's fantastic. And that goes back to something that Leon and I have said a lot is that every company now is a tech company. It doesn't matter what industry they started in, they are now that industry plus tech because you have to be, right? That you have to have all these companies have to have some kind of data storage, they have to have a website, they have to have some kind of digital customer interface, whether it's just a phone system or a chat system. So yes, every company now is industry plus tech. Yeah, no worries, Neelium. I hope that helps. And as far as framing it, yeah, you can say that. So you could frame it as something like, in my pursuit of software engineering, I was uh, I was pursuing several interests, including photography, and then supporting myself by working in the food industry. But during that time, I also discovered I had a real passion for coding. And so, in addition to everything else that I was doing, I prioritized my time so that I could also devote myself to my new passion of coding. And as a result of that, I produced several products for myself and for clients, and I'd be happy to show you a few of those products today. You can take I've shared my GitHub with you, I've shared my portfolio with you. And so I was able to pursue this passion in addition. And now what I've discovered is that based on my growth within coding, this is really what I want to pursue. And I find myself really passionate about working for companies such as yours that provide X, whatever X service it is. And I've decided to devote myself to fully to this industry now, but bring all of the skills that I've gained in my other work now to the table here with you. So you might frame it some way like that. Chris says, "Yeah, no kidding. I've worn a lot of hats in the past, but food service is a respectable, tough gig. 100%." Oh, J3. Wow. I love that. The fruit vendor down the street is a tech company. He had an Insta and stores things on Google Drive. See, even like a small, food cart or stuff like that, they still have a tech component if they want to survive nowadays. Yeah. Service industry is super respectable. Kristen B says, I feel like the only people that are in it feel otherwise. The rest of us know how hard it is and how admirable it is and how many skills it takes to be successful at it. Yeah. So, I mean, um, it's yeah, service industry is tough because traditionally it's been seen as like a starter career, which is really not true. There's people at every level of their career in the service industry. It's not high school kids in wearing paper hats at McDonald's. That's not the case. There's every level of service industry worker, and they are truly who keep the economy running. So, and the skills that you gain in that are really pretty much unparalleled, unlike any other industry. Fafin says gig work is also pretty helpful if you're trying to make time for something like learning to code. It's a solution to the problem of I want to learn this and change careers. How do I support myself too? Yeah, with gig work, you do get that flexible schedule. Of course, the pitfalls is that your income could be incredibly variable depending on how much work you get and when that work comes in. So, I wouldn't, if you are already employed, I wouldn't necessarily quit your job just until you get that next step. But yes, if you are trying to get back into working, gig work is a viable option. Hey, Smile Girl, where do we submit our question? Go ahead and submit your question right here in chat. That's totally fine. We're a small enough group that we don't need a Slido or anything like that. Um, yeah, drop it right in here. So, anybody else have a story they would like me to craft? Before I move on, Nelium, do you feel like you're in a better spot now that I gave you a little bit of way to frame your experience? We talked about some of the advantages of your experience. Um, just don't forget, to when you're in that interview, Nelium, when you're talking about your newfound passion for coding, don't forget to also then have some projects that you can show, right? So show your portfolio, show any client work that you've done, show, really anything coding related that you feel represents you in a positive light. No worries, Neely. I'm glad we can help. Yeah, and if if at any point if anyone is not if you're not comfortable with your story, if you're not comfortable, showing, being able to really talk the talk in an interview, practice it with somebody else, or practice in front of the mirror. That's what I did that's what landed me my developer job. Was I literally stood in front of the mirror because I don't have any siblings and I don't live with anyone, so I just practiced in front of the mirror until I felt comfortable about what I was saying, right? Angular says, I'm spending a lot of time continuously learning new things and updating my coding knowledge. It feels like there is no end. Yeah, exactly. There is no end to the amount of things that you could potentially learn, right? And so it's important to balance that learning of technical things with actually practicing how to articulate your knowledge, right? You might have a lot of knowledge in your head, but can you articulate it to others? Can you show that you know what you're talking about? And so, just as important as learning new things is also making sure that you can talk about those things, explain them to others, really, show off a little bit, demonstrate your knowledge in an interview setting. So, if you are looking for jobs, it's also important to not only try to learn all the things, but also balance that with articulating what you know. Ooh, Faffin. Okay, Faffin's got a story. All right. I have a story that might be difficult or personal to craft. Okay. I'm a 15-year sysadmin. Wow, congratulations. Who has been off work on disability for 4 years. Trying to get back to work. Not sure if it will be in tech or not, but work from home, contracting, and more coding seems more. Work from home, contracting, and more coding seems more likely to work than other things. Yeah, I mean, if you have a long history as a sysadmin, you'll probably want to try to leverage that to get your foot in the door. And as far as your employment gap, that's not something you necessarily have to highlight, right? You don't have to say, well, and I haven't worked for 4 years. No, you can talk it. You can focus more on the work that you did when you were in the industry. And as far as sysadmin stuff, I'm not a sysadmin personally. But you probably will want to kind of make sure that you're caught up on current industry trends and tools, at least so that you can speak to those trends and tools in an interview if you're asked, right? Because that's one thing that you will probably be questioned on is, well, okay, how up to date are you on your knowledge? So you can focus on your past accomplishments as a sysadmin, and then also make sure that you can speak to modern trends even if you haven't been in the workforce while those tools and trends have been in use. So that would be my suggestion there. And yeah, I mean, probably your best bet would be to apply for similar roles like you've had in the past. Yeah. And Silvex says, I have a friend who is in my. Sorry, does that help first off, Faffin? Oh, okay, wait, hang on. You did see in your first 2 years was basically incapable, but last year, all physical stuff, working on my home, garden, and woodworking. Aha! This year just starting to be able to read and write coding. And okay, that's another thing. That's another thing that you could also mention. You could say, well, I spent some time. If it comes up, if they pry a little bit in well, what, well, 4 years, huh? What were you doing? Well, you could say, I was devoting myself to personal projects, including, I have a woodworking shop, and, a home garden and all these things. And so you can speak to some of the personal development that you were doing while you were out of the traditional workforce. I mean, woodworking is absolutely a wonderful skill to have. And talking about something like that might prompt some more positive discussion. Oh wow, you've done woodworking, that's so cool. Do you build furniture and all that sort of thing? And then you can also highlight too, the for the entire past year I've been focused on um, personal coding projects, and again getting myself um, absolutely 100% ready to hit the ground running with coding personal projects. And here's some of the personal projects that I've done in the last year. So you can show that you weren't just, and this is not to say that I believe anybody who's out of the workforce is just laying around, but it really proves against that misconception that if you're out of the workforce, you're not being productive. No, you absolutely were. You were woodworking. You were working on personal coding projects. So you weren't out of commission at all. You were just doing something that wasn't sysadmin work. Absolutely. Yeah. And Fafin, you say, yeah, 100%. You founded a makerspace. Okay. There you go. Talk about that. Don't focus on the gap. Focus on what you produced during that time. So it sounds to me like you were a sysadmin for 15 years, and then you spent 4 years pursuing other interests, right? Doing a makerspace, helping the community via a makerspace, woodworking, personal coding projects. And now you're simply ready to pivot back into the sysadmin space. So no, there's no downtime there. It was just a different avenue that you pursued for a while, and now you're ready to go back to coding. So yeah, I would say that that's a fantastic progression. No worries, Fap, and I hope that helps. Just reframing it a little bit differently, right? And again, it's all true. Everything you said is 100% like you were hugely productive during that time. Okay, Silvex says, I have a friend that was in my university class. I became a developer and he became a teacher. I'm now a senior software engineer and trying to get him to apply. Strangely, he wants to apply for a junior role because he feels like he hasn't been able to develop his software engineering skills during his years of teaching. Do you agree he should not think like that? I think he shouldn't restrict himself. I don't know enough about your friend. Oh, thank you, Madeline. Thank you for the bits. And thank you for the follows, everybody. David, Devenger, Practic, Kopitoto, Hazard High, Cookie Trace, Alex Mint. Sorry, I missed so many follows. Tex Mabrep. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, so your friend. Um, I think it's important not to restrict yourself when looking at the job market, right? You never know where you're going to land. So, personal story time. Um, I was a data analyst. So I was and I was doing some fairly technical stuff, but I did not have developer in my title. So before my current role, I was a data analyst. No, the word developer was not in my title. Um, and I landed a senior dev role right off the jump. Now, going into that, if you would have said, yeah, you could be a senior dev, I would have been like, no. But I didn't restrict myself. A coworker encouraged me to apply for the senior role. I did some networking. I prepared heavily for the interview, and I landed a senior role. So if I would have said, "Oh no, I've never been a dev. I've never had dev in my job title before. I couldn't do senior stuff," then I never would have landed this job. So you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So don't I would advise him not to restrict himself in an artificial way. Just make sure that whatever skills he has them fully on display in a GitHub, in LinkedIn, on the resume, that he's advertising himself in the best possible light, and don't artificially restrict possibilities. I hope that helps a little bit. Just don't sell yourself short. Don't take yourself out of the game just because you think you aren't good enough. Because that is probably not what the world thinks, right? Some people might think that, but others won't. Others will be like, yeah, this is exactly the person that we need. And so if you don't put yourself out there, then nobody's going to see that. And Chanpo says, I'm transitioning from working in the courts to becoming a software developer. I'm having the most challenging time trying to connect with others. So, Chanpo, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Can you speak a little bit more about maybe what are you struggling with? Is it articulating your background, or is it just networking with others? What's the challenge? Mavi says, I made a group to practice interviews and pivoted into learning Java. Oh, that's rad. Oh man, I'm so behind on chat. Okay, I'm catching up. All right, Smile Girl says, my background, I work healthcare specifically, clinical research and molecular technologist, tongue twister. One is patient facing, but the other isn't. Okay. We use a lot of technologies, but they are all pretty advanced in the sense they have to be FDA approved to be used due to patient privacy and clinical secrets. Not sure how to craft it. Okay, yeah, so this is actually really cool. So you have all of those public facing skills that we already talked about, right? So you work with the public, and another thing that you do, and I'm guessing here, but I imagine this is true, is that you often have to take technical concepts or very like medical jargon, technical jargon, that kind of thing, and you have to reframe it in a way that the public can understand, right? Joe Schmo comes up to you and you have to explain their results or, technical concepts to non-technical people. And that is a huge advantage for a software developer to have. And so, that's something that you should definitely sell. Be like, look, I can interface, I can translate between technical language and non-technical language fluently, or I can take, customer questions that may be very vague or non-technical, maybe they don't fully understand, and I can interpret that into something that I can go and talk to my coworkers and come back with the right answer. And so that's really huge. I mean, that's kind of why like business analysts are a thing. Is they kind of serve as like the translator between the public and or the customer and the developer. But if you can already do that, then that's a whole step. That's a middleman that's out of the equation now, right? If you can communicate in that way to the customers directly, um, and we use a lot of technologies. Okay. So yeah, you don't have to necessarily be like if you can't talk about those technologies, you don't have to be super specific, but you could I'm imagining you could at least describe sort of in abstract the types of things that they do, right? Um, and I'm imagining that those technologies require some type of fairly technical interface. So you're used to working with advanced medical interfaces, in interpreting the results that those machines give you. Right? I'm sure they give you very specific and highly technical results, and you have to be able to interpret those results accurately. Right? So if you get something wrong, that could cause real medical harm to someone if you interpret those results incorrectly. So you have a massive attention to detail. You communicate well, so you can communicate technical language to non-technical people. You can interpret complicated results, and interpret them accurately the first time, and then know how to act on those results, to deliver the best possible outcome for the patient. And you're also experienced with working with a variety of advanced technologies. So I hope that helps a little bit, smile girl. Smile girl. My apologies. Yeah, no worries. All right, I'm catching up a chat, getting there, getting there, getting there. All right, so Akechi says there are a few areas that interest me, and it sometimes feels tough to pick one area to focus on and be great at. I'm great at DevOps and automation. Cool. I love setting up infrastructure things like Terraform, Azure DevOps, PowerShell, GitHub. But I also like to code web apps, and I have a new interest in AI. Yeah, so if you have a wide and varied background, you'll need to just make sure that when you're pursuing different jobs, different, you might want to like subtly tailor your resume and your interview responses to meet the needs of that job. So make sure that if a job is heavily focused on, say, DevOps, then your resume is highlighting your DevOps accomplishments. And if you're in an interview, answering questions, you'll want to focus on your DevOps background and have answers for those questions that contain highlights from your DevOps experience. So when you have a very varied background, you need to you need to do a little bit more tailoring, right? You need to do a little bit more weeding out of things that may not be relevant for that particular position. So it actually gets a little bit more difficult when you have more things to choose from, right? You need to make sure that, oh, this is more of this is more of like a Microsoft Azure type position. I need to make sure that I'm curating my Azure stuff to be able to answer as many of these questions as I can. So yeah, that can be a little bit difficult. I can't tell you what you should focus on, but just know that if you are applying to a particular position that has certain requirements, that you've tailored your background and your resume to meet those requirements, for that particular position. Hey, Sudo. Welcome to the stream. Looking for ideas on my blurb. I'm 26, working as an insurance salesman. Okay, going on 5 years. Great. Prior to that, I was a freelance writer. Ooh, okay. And I also have some experience with WordPress, um, and Google AdSense monetization. Awesome. That's rad. Okay. So, yeah, there's some great stuff there. So, working in sales, again, all those things we've already talked about as far as like public facing roles. So, you have to be able to, so in order to be an effective salesperson, you have to be able to interpret customer requirements, right? The customer says, you approach them with a pitch, and then the customer says, well, actually, what I need is this, this, and this, or what I like about your pitch is this, what I don't like is this. And so you have to be able to interpret what the customer is saying and tailor your product to meet their needs as much as possible, right? So you're balancing what the product can actually do with what the customer actually wants. And that's pretty big, and that's what's going to happen anytime that you have an app, right? The customer is going to say, well, you know I wanted to also deliver food to my door and pet my dog for me, and you're going to have to be like, no, the app can't do that, but what it can do is interface with DoorDash and Wag to get somebody, to come to your house, to deliver food to your house, and send a dog sitter. So here's what it can actually do, and here's why this is good for you. And so you already have that skill being a salesperson, is that you can interpret what is possible with against what the customer needs. So, and also, 5 years in that particular role does give you that longevity advantage. So, it shows that you are committed to your role, and this may not be true, but at least in the past, that you have showed loyalty to your role, which is absolutely not something that you have to have, but it does, that could be a little check mark. um, Prior to that, I was a freelance writer. Yeah, awesome. Writing skills are excellent in tech if you can show that you can communicate effectively, right? Because just being a good writer means that you can communicate, and you'd be surprised how many people simply don't have that skill. How many people cannot craft an email that is readable, intelligible, and gets the point across? So yeah, you have the ability to communicate effectively. And you didn't say what type of writing you did, but it's very possible you also have some technical writing skills as well, which is huge for documentation, communication with customers, communication with coworkers. Again, excellent skills to have. Um, Also have some experience with WordPress sites, Google AdSense. Yeah. So there you go. That's web dev background right there. WordPress or not, it doesn't matter. So what that's showing is that you have the ability to design an effective user interface, right? WordPress, it might just be plugging in components, but you still have to put those components in a logical order, interpret customer needs, and create a user interface that's pleasing to use and also pleases the customer and has the components that they need. So very valuable as well. And AdSense is huge. So how to help make a website make money. So that's definitely a skill you want to portray as well. Experience with Google AdSense, and optimizing monetization capabilities for sites. So yeah, those are some fantastic things to highlight in your background. So if I had to like streamline that a little bit, it would probably be like experienced in interpreting customer needs and communicating effectively with both customers and product experts. You have extensive experience with writing and professional writing and communication. And you could highlight, you didn't say what specific niche you filled there with your writing, but you could highlight that niche that you filled. And also extensive experience creating effective user interfaces for websites and monetizing those websites using Google AdSense. So that would be the Cliffs Notes version. Champo was mentioning about their background, working in law for about 10 years. Okay, yeah, that's huge. So you have to be precise. Yeah, like you said, you have to be precise. You have to have a high attention to detail, high accuracy, and working with so Champa, you also have to work with others who are in a very stressful role, right? Lawyers and judges, that's hugely stressful. And so you have to be able to communicate effectively under stress, under pressure, deliver results back to the lawyers in a timely manner, and also be accurate in those results as well. And I would disagree when you say it's not technical. So I imagine you mean technical as in like tech, but just because it's not tech related doesn't mean it's not technical. So you have to be, you have to know the ins and outs of the judicial system, which I'm sure requires a lot of memorization and rote knowledge. And so you have to be able to hold a lot of things in your brain to interpret. I don't know exactly what your role is, but to interpret the law and to practice it effectively, right? So some of the things that you've said there are pretty excellent. So precise, attention to detail, working under pressure, prioritizing, working under stress, and also interpreting the law, which is huge. Angular. So we actually aren't going to be coding today. We're going to be story crafting the entire time. So stick around for that. Just crafting it together and trying to get coffee chats. Yeah. So again, like we said before, the worst thing that could happen, right, is that somebody says no to a coffee chat, and so you just reach out to somebody else. And so don't anticipate the no, or don't beat yourself up if somebody doesn't respond. Right? It could be that they're busy. It could be that they didn't see your message. It could be that they just forgot. And so it's never anything personal against you. It's usually just circumstantial when somebody doesn't respond or says no. So Evening Cap says, hot take. Why not acquire coding skills as a jumping off point into entrepreneurship? I've seen so many funded startups uh, want want developers with 5 years plus experience and have a WordPress website. Yeah, so entrepreneurship is certainly a viable option. However, that does come with a high amount of risk, right? So if you're jumping into entrepreneurship, you're going to start out with really no safety net, right? Unless you have a large amount of savings built up. You'll have no one providing you with benefits, no one providing you with retirement. You'll be at the whims of customers. Um, if it fails, then you are on the hook for any outstanding debts or any payments. That's got to come from you. So there is no safety net. Now, I'm not saying entrepreneurship is a bad thing. A lot of people have succeeded, but also I would say a larger number fail. And so if you're just starting out, you might like the security of having a more traditional employer, and getting your feet under you in an environment where you can learn from others, where you can work closely with others on a team and learn from others on that team and absorb their knowledge, and have the safety to explore and gain new skills in a space where that's encouraged, right? You're working for an organization, you have a regular paycheck coming in, you can spend your free time doing whatever the heck you want, right? Learning new skills or helping others or that sort of thing, in your off hours. Because another thing is when you're an entrepreneur, a lot of times that is your life, right? You have no downtime. That every moment of the day you are trying to spend to make your business succeed. And so there is a lot of danger inherent in that. Not to say that no one can ever make it, but you have to understand the trade offs, and it's not the answer to everything. Pseudo says, thank you so much. The thing that worries me is that the site I freelanced is now down. So I'm doubting it's much of a. Well, do you happen to have any screenshots or like mock ups of that site? Because that's perfectly valid to, yeah, you did the work, right? Just because of the fact that it's not, up right now doesn't mean anything. That doesn't invalidate the work that you did. If you can say yes, and I did this site, here's a mock-up of the site. It's not currently being hosted by the person that I made it for, but here's an example of the types of things that I did for that site. um, and I would disagree again that you shouldn't qualify those things as being not technical, right? Because the very fact that it's a site and you got it up and running makes it technical. So don't take yourself out of the game like that. It's a working website that was providing the exact service that you built it for. How is that not technical? Oh, there you go, Madeline. So Madeline suggests I have one of my clients up as a work in progress on my portfolio, and I just hosted it on Netflix. Absolutely. So you could say like under construction for a client, and show that that like Madeline says. I mean that in that case it shows that Madeline is actively building and working on things, and here's the types of things I'm doing right now. Come look at my stuff. And so Pseudo, in your case, if you have a mock-up or a previous version of the site available, you could host it yourself on Netlify and then link to it in your portfolio and be like, here's an example of a past site that I built, for a client. Yeah, and so Pseudo, you could also check like the web archive, like the Wayback Machine. You can see if it's been archived on the Wayback Machine. I don't know how long ago that was, but Oh, Stardroid says, "I used to be a brewer." That's really cool. I'm not sure how to craft that into a good story. Okay, so brewer, I assume of like, alcoholic beverages. Um, so something you could say there. So I don't know a ton about brewing, but from what I understand, it does require a fair amount of um, like precise sort of chemical knowledge, right? You have to know how to ferment things, how long to age them, how to mix the specific ingredients. Because I think it's from what I've heard of stories who've like people who've tried to brew their own beer at home and stuff like that. More often than not, it doesn't go well because it does take some chemical knowledge to know how to mix the ingredients, how long to let things, I don't know, age or steep or ferment. And so that takes a fair amount of precise chemical and technical knowledge. Um, oh yeah, and Star Trek says, yes, I went to school. Um, I went to school for chemistry. Okay, there you go. So just inherently, that gives you a technical background. So you have a technical background in chemistry, and then you apply that knowledge in the practical sense in the brewing industry. And I don't know, did you have to do any public facing activities while you're working for that brewer? Did you work with the public at all, or did you work with a team in your particular role? What else did you do? Ratsq says, "I used to be a brewer, and that's why I age well." But there you go. That would be a fun joke to tell. Yeah, there you go. Yes, events. Okay, there you go. So again, that's a slam dunk. You had to manage large scale of, so not only did you have to do the chemical stuff for the brewer, managing ingredients, managing fermentation times, you also had to work with the public to facilitate and manage large scale events from start to finish, ensuring a positive customer outcome and interpreting customer requirements. And it's especially difficult environment where alcohol is involved, right? I'm sure working for a brewer, there was alcohol involved with that, with every single event that you did, which also adds a layer of complication when dealing with the public. So 100%, you manage complex projects. Let's say that. All right, you manage complex projects from start to finish to ensure customer satisfaction. Um, in working with large scale events and the public and alcohol. Yeah, team leader. There you go. Steroids. You're passing me the ball so I can just like dunk it. I mean, you got the events management. You were a team leader, so you managed people. You managed people on the back end in the brewery itself, and then you also dealt with people on the front end. So you sounds like you've got the full package here. Akariman says, yeah, there's always a biochemist on staff. Okay. Brewing is a solid industry, a lot of good skills. Yeah. Like I said, I really don't know much about it, but just based on what you've told me, you have the technical skill, you have the skill of working with the public, and you can be a leader of people. So those are definitely all things that you would want to highlight. Yeah. I hope that helps give you a few things that you can talk, a few talking points. Yeah. Okay, good. And especially, be sure that when you're talking about those types of things on your resume or in an interview, using those action words that really highlight the ownership. So saying like, I managed a team of X people and performing, technically complicated brewing operations in which a single mistake could ruin, an entire like vat of beer or whatever. And you know, uh, uh, interpreted complex biochemical reactions to deliver the best possible product, and then also managed and led large scale customer facing events. And then you could highlight a few of the events you're most proud of, and then the outcome of those events as well. So Pearlfall says, hey Mayan, I moved to the US a few years ago. I have 2 years experience of web development. Cool. I'm a little introverted and not a native speaker, which seems to make it harder to network or talk to the interviewer with confidence. Um, I'm worried about behavioral interviews specifically. Will the interviewer judge me if I don't speak English fluently? I get more nervous when I speak in English. Being interviewed in English sounds so overwhelming. Do you have any advice? Yes. So practice. I mean, it sounds trite, but just you got to practice. Practice with others in a non-interview setting. So conversational English, just the back and forth flow of conversation. Find somebody that you can practice with, preferably, a native English speaker, who can help you answering those common questions and, gently guide you toward, forming your answers and making them sound natural and fluid as possible. So you just want to practice in a low stress environment so that when you get to that high stress environment of the interview, you're feeling more confident and assured. If you are part of 100 Devs Pearlfall, I would suggest finding someone to practice with in the voice channels on the Discord. Everybody there is after the same thing, right? Everybody there is just working toward that job, and so they can, help you with the back and forth of those behavioral questions. Now, Pearlfall, do you already have access to the bank of behavioral questions? Do you already have that? Because if not, let's get you set up with the bank so you know which questions to practice. You do? Okay, great. So, yeah, just focus on those behavioral questions. Find somebody that you can have that back and forth with, whether that's in person, on the Discord, but just practice that list of, I don't know, however many questions there are, 14 or something like that. Just practice the behavioral questions until you feel comfortable and fluent in your answers. Yeah. For you, I mean, I think the best answer, since you already have web dev experience, you should have no problem with the technical component, right? You already know how to be a web developer. You've got the technical skills. Now, focus on the behavioral and just practice with someone. Mr. Carson says, where is the bank? Yes, that is an excellent question. Let me help you out. So I'm going to switch my screen here real quick. Let's go. I'm going to show you where to find it. So anybody else in chat, you can pull down your own copy. Okay. So switching my screen. So I have gone to Leon's Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/learn with Leon. Now you can't see that because it's behind my head. So let me change this window here a little bit. All right. So I'm on twitch.tv/learn with Leon, which if you do !Leon in the chat, that will give you a link to this channel. In the chat box, type !bank. Okay. And that will immediately give you a link to the bank. So go there, type !bank, and voila, you will get your own copy of the bank. And you can make a copy, so you can click that link, make a copy, and then have your personal copy that you can mark up with your own answers or print off or whatever the heck you want to do. Okay? Yeah, no Rascal 2 today, so we have to make our own links. All right, so Mr. Carson, I hope that helps. NemoBit, you need to go to twitch.tv/learn with Leon first, and then do !bank, okay? So the link, so one more time, go to the Twitch channel that I just posted there in chat. No worries, NemoBit. That's perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure we were clear. So go to the Twitch channel first, and then !bank. And I can see I can see somebody else has done it already. So get on over there, get your own copy. All right, good stuff. Okay, gonna catch up with chat here, and then we'll take our first break. Silver Spindo says, I'm a professional tarot reader. Ooh, that is fascinating. I'm a professional tarot reader, primarily as a contractor on websites. Okay. And frankly, I'm worried about bringing it up at all, especially since I've been that for several years. And all I have before that is customer service. So if you're uncomfortable talking about tarot, which whether or not you mention specifically tarot or not, could be up to the type of interview that you're in. And how the kind of the vibe. I assume you're pretty good at reading like vibes from people, so that could determine the type of vibe you get from the interviewer. Could be whether or not you bring up tarot specifically, but you could say something like was contracted to do counseling and behavioral uh, sort of therapeutic behavioral services for for people online, provided online behavioral services and counseling. That could be something that you mention instead of tarot specifically, because really when you're reading tarot, it's like you're sort of taking the feedback from the person you're talking to, right? You're speaking to them, you're getting a feel for what they're like, and then you're giving them a reading based on the what you're perceiving from that person, right? So it's sort of like counseling, sort of like almost like talk therapy, but you're not a therapist, so I would assume you're not licensed. So I don't know whether you're allowed to say that, but you could say provided behavioral counseling and worked closely to sort of what's the word I'm thinking of, and did like career consulting. You could also say that too, career path. You did career path consulting. You did behavioral consulting with people. So you could say it in sort of those terms instead of strictly tarot. But that's fascinating. Mavi says, I'm also not a native speaker. Yeah, so confidence is a huge thing, and you can get more confidence by practicing, right? Hey, Spigot, welcome. Kiyomi says, English is my second language, still struggling in some parts. I talk to my rubber duck to practice. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you talk to, just talk to someone. And the more you rehearse those answers, the more fluent they will become. When I play games on my PC, I talk through it in English as if I'm streaming. Hey, that's rad. Madeline, yeah. So Madeline did make the cat tarot, um, which I have right here. It's adorable. They're freaking amazing. So yes, this is Madeline's consider it cat tarot cards. They're friggin' rad. Yeah. And yeah, I mean I don't know if there, like there's some of the designs. They're kind of hard to see, but they're beautiful. Yeah, I keep them right here on my desk. Silver Spindle says those are all good ideas. I literally never think of it as counseling. No, but I wouldn't say it's terribly different, right? What is counseling but listening to what the needs that the person has, the emotional needs that they have, and then figuring out the best way to respond to those needs, to sort of guide them in the appropriate direction, right? And so, yeah, I would absolutely say it's counseling. It's just counseling in a different sense, right? It's counseling with the sort of an added layer of of interpretation to it. But no, I would say it's absolutely counseling. Yeah, and tarot is a lot more mainstream. Absolutely. I mean, these I have those tarot cards there, and there's tons of tarot readers here on Twitch. Um, so yeah, 100%. Angular says my dream is to build a web agency when I finish the 100 dev scores. Oh, rad. Okay. What would you want your agency to do? Yeah, and Madeline brings up a great point. So tarot can also be a way of reflection, right? So Spindle, what you're also doing is you're helping people reflect, and that's absolutely what counselors do, right? Reflect on their own wants and desires. And yeah, it's just another way. The cards are almost like a way to just help people take themselves out of their own head and see what they really want and need from an objective perspective, which is all counseling is. Building websites and apps for people, Angular. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. All right, I think it's time for a break. So we're going to take 5 minutes, go get up, use the bathroom. I'm going to warm up my tea a little bit. We're going to take 5 minutes. We'll come back. We're going to keep doing story crafting. So think about your questions. Think about your experiences. Maybe you're not quite sure how to sell yourself in an effective way in an interview, how to sell yourself in a positive light. Um, so if you want your story crafted, if you have questions about your background, get those questions ready, and then when we come back, what we'll do is keep talking about it. Ooh, okay. So, Silver Spindle, you just brought up an excellent point. And I want to talk about that when we get back, okay? So, I better see y'all back here in 5 minutes because I really, really want to talk about what Spindle just brought up. So, Spindle just said, I'm particularly intimidated because of how male dominated tech seems to be, and I'm already self conscious of being a minority in the field in multiple ways. All right, ooh, I so want to talk about that right now, but we need to take a break to be healthy. But we got to I'm going to put like the world's biggest pin in that one, and we're going to talk about it when we get back, okay? So I'm going to get the timer going. Wait, that's a perfect cliffhanger for when we come back. So hang on one sec. Timer's coming up. And go get up, use the bathroom, get a drink of water, stretch your arms, stretch your shoulders. And I will see you back here in 5. And we're going to talk about that, what Spindle brought up. All right. All right, folks, we'll be coming back in about a minute and 30 seconds. But if you haven't gotten up and stretched already, please do so right now. Just get up for a few seconds, stretch out, roll your shoulders. Um, don't stay sitting the entire time, it's not good for you. Angular says, spending a lot of time behind computer as a developer, and now my eyes hurt. Yeah, again, that's another important thing is you got to look away from the screen now and then. Um, don't stay staring at the screen the whole time. Focus your eyes on something else. Look outside, somewhere else. Yeah, and Adnerdable says they even set a timer, which is a great idea. Akariman says, I used to have sore eyes looking at full HD displays in dark mode without realizing the intensity of exposure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Got to be careful with dark mode with bright, bright white lettering on dark mode. Does It's a lot of stress and strain on your eyes. All right, come on back if you're coming back. Getting ready to stop the timer, and we'll resume our excellent discussion. All right, camera on. Okay, perfect. What's my hair doing? Damn, I don't know. All right, whatever. Doesn't matter. Okay. So some folks giving some excellent advice there on reducing eye strain. Yeah, ergonomics are super important. Um, just yeah, make sure that you're taking care of your eyes and your body, which is why I'm standing while I'm streaming, because I sit all day for work, and so when I stream, I don't want to be sitting for another 3, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever. Um, I stand up, and so it's important to give your body some variety and some exercise and movement. Um, All right, so world's biggest pin. Yes. So Spindle, Silver Spindle mentioned before the break. They said, I think I'm particularly intimidated because of how male-dominated tech seems to be, and I'm already self-conscious of being a minority in the field in multiple ways. Yeah, sure, and that's absolutely a valid feeling to have. But it's really, really, really important to know and understand that not tech is an incredibly varied and diverse field. So yes, there are absolutely some subsets of tech that are tremendously male dominated, and continue to be today. However, the landscape of tech, every company is a tech company now, and so by necessity, that landscape has evolved tremendously in the past, decade or so. To become much more diverse and much more varied than you might think. So, what you hear about a lot of the times is the bad stories, right? From big tech companies, Blizzard and the big Silicon Valley tech bro type companies. But you don't have to work for one of those companies. You can absolutely find companies out there that have welcoming, diverse, um, equitable environments for everyone. So I would say that my current employer is very much one of those environments. So my team right now that I work on of highly skilled developers is pretty much an even 50-50 split, male to female. So, and also our lead architect, the person that designs all of our databases is essentially the de facto leader of the team, is a woman. She designs our databases, um, and yeah, and so and at the developer level, our split is 50-50. Um, and just like with a lot of things in the media and on the internet, a lot of what you hear is the horror stories, right? But when you actually start getting into tech and into that workforce, you can examine the culture. A lot of companies will have their culture on display, right, on the internet, online, on Glassdoor, and you can pretty carefully scrutinize that culture and find one that's going to be welcoming and accommodating to you personally. Um, so I think what you'll find is that it used to be that the industry was very male heavy. However, there have always been a ton of women in tech, and a lot of times it just was that those women were not highlighted, right? They were still there and they were contributing, but they just weren't highlighted. And now it's more out in the open. Women's contributions are being valued and they're seen as more equal members of the team. And so if you don't venture into that sort of tech bro space, and those tech bro companies, you can find tons of other companies out there that are going to be welcoming and accommodating to women, to minorities. You'll find women led companies, minority led companies that are going to welcome you into their space. Yeah. And that's one of the greatest values of the internet is that you can go online and you can see these company cultures on display, and you can, read reviews on Glassdoor and stuff like that, and see the type of culture that actually exists within the day-to-day interactions of those companies and determine, yes, this is a company I would like to work with, or nope, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for me. So you are in control, and you can discern the type of place you want to work for because you have that level of choice now, which I think is really incredible. Yeah, our man, so yeah, go ahead and share your story in chat and we'll get to that. But I did want to highlight that there's this sort of pervasive fear. And it's not an unfounded fear, right? Is that at the, in the beginning, there were far fewer companies to work for. And many of those companies were heavily male. And that is still a trend. There's still a lot of companies that way, but now there's a lot of companies that aren't. Um, and, again, I would say my current employer is very much that way, is that we are an even team, women and men, and I would say actually the more experienced side of our team are the women, and the architect of our team is a woman, um, and a lot of the teams at my employer are that way. Yeah, and it's okay to be scared too, right? It's okay to be scared, but don't let your fear take you out of the game, right? You can be smart and you can stack the playing field to be as advantageous for yourself as possible, right? You can look at those company cultures beforehand and you can say, yes, this is a space I want to work for. Or yes, these people mirror my values. This is the kind of place I would want to work for. And so you can set yourself up to enter into a welcoming environment. So yeah, again, don't let your fear pull you out of the job hunt just because that it could go badly. You can use the power of the modern internet to set up all the advantages in the world for yourself as far as finding a good culture fit for you. But it's okay to be afraid. Don't let your fear limit you, though. I hope that helps a little bit. But yeah, again, what you bring up is a very valid point. And Madeline says, I try to consider myself being female as an asset for any company that I talk to because it is. Yeah. A lot of companies now, that's an excellent point. A lot of companies are trying to actively diversify their workforce. They want, they understand the need for a more equitable environment because it makes, in a purely cynical sense, if we're thinking about it aside from any, moral rightness or wrongness or whatever, in a purely cynical profit sense, having a more diverse workforce makes them look better. And so a lot of times, yeah, they are looking for more diverse workforces. They are looking for the widest variety of people that they can employ, even if they're just trying to check a box off, right? And so, yeah, even in a cynical sense, you have some opportunities there. Um, and another thing in selling yourself is yeah, having confidence and saying like, yes, I am exactly the person that you want, just because I have the skills to be a valued part of your company, right? Yeah. So I mean, thinking about me, right? So yeah, number one, I'm a woman, and then number two, I do have a fairly visible sort of physical impairment, right? I can't look people directly in the eye. You all know, you all see my eyes. They're a little bit disconcerting, right? And if you think about it, so think about the types of people that you've seen that look like me in movies and in cartoons, right? Usually the person with eyes pointing in different directions is not the most intelligent specimen in the world, right? So when I go into an interview, I have to project confidence, I have to project knowledge to overcome that immediate knee jerk reaction that some people are going to have, not everyone, but some. Of unintelligence based on my experience, based on my visual appearance, right? And so cultivating that confidence is also a huge part of just walking into an interview and being like, freaking heck, I own this. I have the skills. Let me show you my skills. Yeah, and it's right. It's working what I'm doing because I've practiced it. Yeah, so you can look past this and see what I bring to the table because I've cultivated it and I've practiced it, and you can too. Yeah. So, anybody else want to share their stories? I love this discussion. This is a fantastic discussion. It's a conversation that we need to have. occasionally we need to get past our preconceptions of what we think the industry is like and actually dive in and see that there's so many opportunities out there for everybody, right? Not just the traditional tech bro. Okay. Anybody else want to share? Anybody else have questions about their story? Want to share their story? Needs help crafting their story? Mavi says tech here. It's also heavily male on the dev side. All female employees are in other roles like recruiters, HR, etc. Don't let the team picks fool you. Yeah, and sometimes that is the case, right? There are roles that are considered, traditionally one or the other, like HR and that sort of thing. Um, which is again why you can use your culture sleuthing skills a little bit and look at those reviews on Glassdoor, and see if there's a if the company has a desire to recruit diverse engineers to sort of flesh out their dev crew a little bit more. All right, Man says, my story, I'm 31, graduated from university in 2013. Okay. Have been working as a math tutor since then. I studied physics at uni and realized that it wasn't for me when it was too late. Okay. I love tutoring, but during all this time, programming was my passion. Cool, awesome. I built tools. Ooh, nice. All right, I built tools for students that help solve math problems with Wolfram Mathematica. Oh man, that was a lifesaver for me. And some small data visualization programs. Also, I finished the CS50 course and built some automation scripts using Python. This was before I heard about 100 devs. Okay, Armanis, that's an amazing story. I love that so much because let me kind of break down the specifics of what I see in your story. So, um, you have a very technical background, right, in physics. It doesn't matter that you didn't graduate. You still have that in your back pocket. So you have a technical background in physics. Um, you have experience tutoring and teaching others. So you know how to take those complicated physics concepts and boil them down, to teach them to others, and that's friggin' huge. That's a massive skill to have. So you can communicate technical information to non-technical people or to less technical people, right? Effectively. Um, you've had this side passion for years. You could say, I spent 10 years programming on the side, building projects start to finish independently on my own, and hopefully you're able to demonstrate some of those projects. You have them hosted somewhere, GitHub, Portfolio, something like that. Um, and you built tools. So you saw a need, right? You saw a need that your students had. You built these tools for your students, interfacing with this tremendously complicated system that is Wolfram Mathematica. Um, and you saw this need and you filled the need by building a custom tool for your students. Um, so, yeah, absolutely hype that up. You saw a need, you filled that need. You interpreted the requirements. Your project then had, X number of users over time. You could also talk about, taking user feedback and improving those projects based on what your students said. I'm sure that, you launched it, the students said, oh, this is broken, or, oh, this could be better. And then you went back and you did a version two. Um, and yeah, you can bring up the CS50 course, um, build some automation scripts. So yeah, you have skills in you have skills in data science, right? Visualization, data science, Python automation, building tools from start to finish. Be ready to talk about some of those specific projects and tools that you built. And you have, let's see, you graduated from university in 2013. So I'm assuming that you've been kind of coding that entire time while you've been tutoring. So that's 10 years. So you have 10 years of experience. It doesn't matter that you weren't employed as a coder for that time. You have 10 years of coding experience, building projects, interpreting customer requirements, teaching others, technical communication. So yeah, own that. Show off those projects. Talk about some of the process, some of the uh, like the feedback cycle for those products as you release them. How did you handle feedback? How did you incorporate new features? Talk about that. How did you organize those projects? That kind of thing. How did you host them? Yeah, absolutely. Hype up your independent projects, your 10 years of experience coding, and depending on what type of role you're applying for, you could also hype up the data science component. and the types of things you did via data science. So, I mean, it sounds like you have a fantastic background for for a tech job. Holy crap! I would say, especially like in the data science field, which is incredibly high paying. It sounds like you might have a good shot at that as well, if that's something you're interested in. Fuel Snobble says, for me, I'm at the point where ageism is starting to be a bit of a problem. So, yeah, ageism, I don't know what age bracket you're currently in, but ageism could be an issue. But I think you can combat that a little bit by showing that you have that with that age you have a wide like a long tail of experience, right? You have a lot of experience to show for that in various fields. It doesn't have to be tech. Whatever experience you have, if you can highlight the incredible wealth of skills that you've gained over the time you've been in the workforce, then that'll help you combat just that number on the page, right, of your age. So you can say, well, yeah, I might be, I don't know, 60, but because I have that long of a time in the workforce, here's all the wonderful things that I've done that I can show for that, which can help fight that. I don't know why there's a misconception about people being older. It just seems bizarre to me. But you can show specific examples of the types of things that you bring to the table that maybe somebody newer to the workforce simply doesn't. The experience that they don't have. Armant says, now I'm focused on full stack development. My $100 project is going to be a statistical analysis tool. Ooh, very cool. How can I transform this into something that employers would like? So what I would suggest is finding a specific, like you did for your students, right? You found a specific problem. The problem was that your students needed help interfacing with Wolfram Mathematica. Um, and so find a specific problem in a field of interest, for industries. I don't know what type of industry you might be wanting to break into, but find a specific problem and tailor your tool to tackle that problem. Um, and whether it's just general statistical analysis or statistical analysis for a certain industry, just find a way to have a narrative around your tool. So something that you could tell the story of when you're in an interview. Be like, yeah, so I was, really, I got really interested in, I don't know, the renewable energy industry, and I found that there were really no tools to help, you know, calculate aggregate the loads of solar panels across the Midwest. And so I built the statistical analysis tool to help folks calculate solar energy needs and ability to fulfill those needs between customers and suppliers across the greater Midwest. And what it allows is, solar providers to find the greatest needs of customers across the Midwest by plugging in the numbers here, here, and here, and returning a detailed analysis of the results. I'm just spitballing here, but find an industry, find a need, and craft your app and your story to fulfill that need. Sound of Gaming. Wow, Sound of Gaming says, not sure if I shared my story, but I got my job through the most unconventional method, a Twitch chat reference. Nice. Been working as a Django developer since May 2022. That's an awesome story. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's awesome. I did get my associates in programming, which may have helped a little. I consider myself self-taught since my degree was entirely online. Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Oh, said he says that ceiling needs a new paint job. It looks like it's peeling, but it's actually a that's a like a mobile. So yeah, it's not peeled paint. It's a mobile that's hanging from the ceiling, and there's a light up there. So not peeled paint. Don't worry, I'm not spewing lead paint flakes all over. It's the ceiling has actually been painted within the last couple of years. So it's a little like, paper angel mobile that's like hanging from the light. Yeah, I can see why. Actually, now I can see why it looks like paint flakes. Yeah. If I had better lighting in the room, it would probably look like a mobile. Armand says, "Thank you so much. I honestly thought my experience was worthless. Absolutely not. You have a fantastic background. It's incredible. I mean, I feel like employers would kill to have somebody with a stats, data science, Python, data development, like analytics, and full stack app development background. I mean, holy crap! Like you are the entire package." Yeah, I feel like you could, I bet you could probably get like a senior data scientist role if you wanted to, like right now. I don't know what you want, but yeah, 100%. Mommy says, "Come be a game dev. It's so fun to work 14 hours a day. It's a breeze." Yeah, uh, yeah. There is a little bit of that. Companies sort of preying on people who don't know any better, who are just so grateful to just be working for their favorite game company, right? That they don't, and the company says, "Oh, we're family." And so you'll work a few extra hours for us, right? You'll get us through the crunch, right? And people are like, yeah, and then they exploit the heck out of you. Yeah, that is a very real concern especially in the game dev industry. That's why I don't want to be a game dev. Yeah, get in, get in, loser. Has a wonderful little summary there. Having a teachable spirit means you're malleable, open minded, you adapt, you're sensitive. 100%. Yeah, totally agree. Um, I'd rather hire someone with a background in teaching others with the same amount of experience as another qualified candidate. Yep. If you're willing to teach, you're willing to learn as well, and you're malleable and adaptable. 100%. Beverin says, "What do you think of the thing with the Purdue Chancellor Comments thing? Are there people in IT that have feelings about that?" Yeah. So, for a little context there, um, someone at one of the Purdue, so the chancellor at one of the Purdue regional campuses, unfortunately said a something derogatory about a racial minority, uh, unfortunately. And so, yeah, obviously, very against that. Pretty much everybody at the Purdue main campus, I think, was very disappointed and concerned about that. I'm not sure what type of disciplinary action will be taken against that person, but that's part of the ongoing conversation that we continue to have as every industry tries to become more equitable. There's always going to be those types of really unfortunate comments that get made, and things that happen. And so that's why I kind of see as that's why we got to break in, right? There's got to be more women, minorities, that sort of thing in higher education, in tech, in all these fields where we've always been, historically not been as present, because we can be the ones that make a better future for those that come after us, right? Um, and so, yeah, I mean, obviously that was very disappointing. And so all I can do is try to be, the best person that I can be in my role and help bring others along with me, right? We got to bring others in. We got to bring others in here with us. But yeah, it sucks. 100%. We need to be trailblazers. Yeah. And being a trailblazer is sometimes difficult, right? It's sometimes not a role that we want to have. Um, and, but I think it's kind of an honor, right? Sometimes it's an honor to be a trailblazer and to help bring others along with us. And I think the more people we can bring along with us, the easier that role becomes, right? So let's all bring each other up together. Oh, and thank you for gifting the sub, Get In Loser. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So whenever somebody else subs to my channel, um, I always think it's a wonderful thing because it's we're gonna make Jeff Bezos sell his cowboy hat hopefully and not get to space so quickly. Hey, Hamdi Gaming, welcome to the stream. Today we're doing some story crafting. So we've got another couple people who share their backgrounds here. Let me catch up here and find where we're in chat. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so Olseti says, fun fact. I know 9 different programming languages, assembly in x86, x64, 8085. I know SQL. I understand how DBs work on mainframe servers, yet I'll never get a job as a programmer because I lack any certifications or degrees in programming, software development, etc. Now, Olseti, I'm going to politely disagree with you because guess what? I don't have a degree in computer science. I don't have any certifications. I am entirely self-taught, and before I started doing web development, I only knew SQL. But I'm a senior SQL dev, so it is not true. I need to highlight this for everyone. It is not true that you need a degree or certifications in computer science, in whatever other degrees they offer. I don't know. You don't need a degree in anything. One of my other coworkers has it. My manager right now has a degree in sociology. Um, One of my coworkers, a very senior dev, has a degree in English, and neither of them have any certifications either. Um, I could list examples all day long. One of my coworkers never went to college at all. They graduated high school and started out in the workforce, and now they are an architect for a BI platform tool. So, I mean, no, that's absolutely not the case. What matters is how you can present yourself in an interview, how you can highlight your past experience, which is what we are talking about today. So, Olseti, if you would like help on better articulating your experience in an interview, I'm absolutely happy to help you with that. Because I want to get past that misconception about background and the type of background that you have to be in tech. That is not true. So, yeah, get that out of your head. As long as you can highlight your experiences, truly demonstrate all these skills that you just listed off here, then you can absolutely get a job in tech. I have, many other people have. Um, so, yeah, you do not need a degree. I spent many years thinking that you did need a degree. And then suddenly, oh, hey, wait, I'm a senior dev. Nope, no degree required, right? No degree in CS at all. So don't think like that. Don't limit yourself. All right, Antosha says, this is mine with some highlights from resume. I moved states 10 years ago and I've been working in hospitality and restaurant industry since, okay, might have missed a word there, but since sometime. Okay, 10 years ago. I get it. All right, so you've been working in hospitality for 10 years. Cool. I've always enjoyed working in a team environment. Awesome. I led a team of servers to effectively execute private dining events upwards of 500K across all venues. Fantastic. Ran a training program for new hires and facilitated communication between restaurant staff and corporate event sales. Yeah, I think that's great. Let me read this again. Team environment. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a fantastic start. Now, can you tie that a little bit into? So, Antasha, did you build? Have what type of projects have you built? Like coding projects have you built on the side? Can you tie those projects into this hospitality industry that you have 10 years of experience in? Because I think you're doing a good job of highlighting your skills in hospitality, of working with others and working in a team. Um, Executing essentially, private dining events, which are essentially, like projects, right? Projects start to finish. Um, Running training programs, absolutely, that's a fantastic thing to highlight. Communication. So I think you're doing an excellent job of hitting your soft skills. Now, can you tie some of your coding accomplishments into that hospitality space? Do you like what was your 100 hours project on? Did you do something related to hospitality there or something different? Yeah, Soft brings up that they say, they've have a lot of skills, but they only have a high school diploma and they've worked in mostly all fields of programming. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about tech is that you don't need a degree at all. You just need to show what you can do. I never needed a degree in CS. That said, I wish I had. Yeah, I don't wish I had a degree in CS. I'm perfectly happy learning things on the job and applying things as I go. One of my major things is that I don't learn well when I can't apply what I'm learning. I don't do well with theory. I mean, that's just me personally, right? It's just a personal way my brain works, right? I like being on the job and having these, deadlines imposed by my work, which forces me to get things done, to learn things. It keeps me on track, right? When I'm actively being paid and my paycheck relies on me learning these things and applying these things, then yeah, I'll get them done. Hamdi Gaming, you can absolutely share your story. It looks like you did below there, so thank you for that. I'm just catching up here. Spigot says, honestly, have my master's. Most degrees are honestly useless. Yeah, I have a master's too, but it hasn't done squat to help me out at any point. I got it later. I got it yeah, I finished it after I got employed as a dev, so it hasn't done nothing to benefit me so far. Hamdi says, I'm a mechatronic. Ooh, a mechatronic engineer. I don't even know what that is. That's awesome. Graduated from it sounds fancy though. Graduated from university in 2022. I have a background in robotics and automation. Freaking rad. I've started my journey back in 2017 when I was designing illustrations and vector art. Awesome. I was freelancing at that time, and then I had to learn mobile development for a client for a project. Awesome. Since then, I explored my passion in programming until I found my passion in web development. Okay, fantastic. So you have a tech background in an incredibly complicated field, the field of robotics and automation. I mean, just by itself, that sounds really cool. So you can maybe talk about, some of the accomplishments that you have in mechatronics and automation. Um, and then you also, but the cool thing here is that you have the technical side and then you also have the creative side. So you are a full package here of both front end and back end skills, right? You can design things technically with vector and various, I'm sure design tools such as Photoshop, Illustrator, that kind of thing. Um, and then you can also, do the incredible technical back end part of it as well. I mean, that's truly full stack right there. Like I don't have those design skills, right? I can make a front end, but it ain't going to be pretty, and I'll probably just use a template. But you truly can design things from scratch, which is pretty wild. And then had to learn mobile development for a client for a project. Okay, so again, that's another thing you can highlight. So you are a full stack web and mobile developer. Like if you had to define yourself, that's what I would say. Truly full stack, web and mobile. And so be sure to highlight that you can do pretty much whatever your employer needs you to do already. Like you have those skills baked in. And so, you can, what I would say is make sure that you highlight this breadth of skills that you have and show maybe some of your past projects, maybe some apps, some front end work, some back end work, and then say, all right, but now, I'm currently focusing all of my skills on the field of web development specifically. But here's all the magical things that I can bring to the table. And now I specifically want to focus on web development in the industry of, whatever this company is doing. So, I mean, that's an incredible amount of stuff to highlight. I would make sure that you have some specific projects that maybe like one for each, right? A more back end focused project, a more design focused project, and a mobile project that you can show to say like, yes, I truly have all of these skills. Now let me bring them to you. I mean, that's fantastic, what you already have. So Olseti, yeah, I mean that's a fair point. What you said there about getting screened out, and that's true. That can happen if all you're doing is just clicking apply, right? You go to the site, you upload your resume, you click apply, and yeah, the automated software is gonna sometimes screen you out. And so what you can do instead, yes, you say you don't know anybody in the field, but you can get to know people in the field. And that's the magic of social media. So I know that sometimes social media is a little bit of a dirty word to people, but you're going to need to get over that aversion and start reaching out to devs on Twitter. Given your wide breadth of skills, I'm sure you can find topics that you have in common with devs who are employed at those companies, right? Um, striking up conversations with devs on Twitter in very technical ways. I'm sure you can communicate at a high technical level with those developers. So, starting up organic conversations on social media, sharing some of your personal projects. So, Olseti, it sounds like you probably have a lot of personal projects. Start sharing those on Twitter, being proud of your work that you've done yourself. Share the coolest things that really highlight your skills. Advertise yourself a little bit, and you'll start getting followers. You'll start making those connections with other devs. Other devs are going to want to network with you. How did you build that? That looks so cool. Can you share your technique? What tools did you use? And that's how you can start those conversations with other people, and then sort of organically say, and actually, you know what? I'm actually looking for a new role right now. And I see that your company is has some positions open. Is there anything that you think might be a good fit? And then that other dev is going to say, well, hey, actually, let me talk to the hiring manager. Let's see if we can get you in here. And so when you do it that way, whatever's the friggin' college on your resume, it doesn't matter. They're not going to look at that anyway. What they're going to look at, what they're going to see first from you, Olseti, is what you bring to the table, your skills, your projects. They're not going to remember, first impressions are everything, right? And so if your first impression is a tremendously incredible, beautiful project that you've posted on Twitter and you've curated yourself to truly portray your skills in the best light, then that's the first impression, and that's why they're going to want to hire you. Okay, so you got to change your approach. I fully understand that it's not working for you right now, but it's not working. So you've got to change your approach. You've got to go to social media, and you've got to show off your skills to others, because it sounds like you truly do have the skills. So advertise them. Get out there. Okay. Adner, I can't say it. Adner Dable, thank you so much for the Prime sub. I apologize, I butchered that. Great job with the tongue twister there. But yeah, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Again, I really appreciate it. Apologies for butchering your name. Yes, let's stop Jeff Bezos from going to space. He's going to have to sell his cowboy hat. Oh, and Tasha Montana. So you were talking earlier about yeah, so hospitality industry. So yeah, sorry, I just went back and read your description there real quick. So yeah, I asked you and Tasha. You have a great description of your people skills, communication skills, team leadership skills already, which I think is really great. And then I asked you what type of app you had built in order to highlight those skills, and what you've just said there, which is an event planning web app, is absolutely perfect. So now the last thing that you need to do is tie that app into your story. So you could say something like, you go through all those things that you listed, which are fantastic, and then say something like, in my 10 years of working in the hospitality industry, I noticed that there was that people have a really hard time coordinating large scale events. And you can have people be event planners, but sometimes it's a lot easier if people just have an app that they can plug things into, help keep track of their event planning needs. And so, based on my many years of experience in the industry, I actually built an event planning app from the ground up, which helps people plan and organize their own events, so they don't have to reach out to a bunch of different people on their own. They don't have to keep track of caterers and other personnel, and the app helps organize all that information for them. And I can demonstrate that app for you, and then this is when you would segue into it, and here it is, and go through all the features and stuff like that. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. The app that you've built ties directly into your past experience and skills, and so you can segue into that by first listing off all of your wonderful, personal accomplishments as far as people skills and organizational skills, and then see, like, now look, I have the technical skills as well. So I think that's fantastic. That's the perfect thing, the perfect app that you have there. Uh, Still catching up with chat. Jellybean says, my story, I'm older, but I look younger. Okay. I was an engineer, teacher, then stay at home mom, then finally back in the workforce in 2008. Couldn't get work, So I started an online teaching business, WordPress, fantastic. This spurred continuous learning in the front end, now back end, React Native, blah, blah, blah. Okay, keep getting asked, do I have CI/CD testing team? But I joined an agile team group for that experience. Okay, um, so I think the things that you're going to want to highlight here, that I mean, you have a fantastic background as well. Awesome, so many people with great backgrounds. So you have technical skills as an engineer, and as an online, I mean, as an online teacher teaching WordPress, like we've already said, right? In order to teach, you have to be adaptable. You have to really know your stuff, right? You have to know the stuff inside and out in order to teach it. Um, and you were also, it looks, yeah, you were also actually a formal teacher at some point. So you can, again, you can articulate things well to customers. You can translate highly technical topics into digestible language for non-technical users. You have the traditional, sciencey engineering background that you can just kind of put on there as a bullet point. Um, you are an entrepreneur. You started your own business, teaching WordPress to others. So you have all of the skills that come along with being a successful entrepreneur: time management, stress management, prioritization, um, you know, business configuration, figuring out what customer needs are, writing, communicating, working with the public, working with customers. All of those things go along with being an entrepreneur. And then you also have the popular skills for the popular products such as React, React Native, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that you absolutely have team skills, right? You are, whatever you're teaching, you're essentially working with a team, right? You might be the leader of that team, but you're taking feedback, you're working together towards a goal, which is making sure that your students understand that lesson. Um, you're an entrepreneur. Um, Yeah. So as far as like testing, I'm not sure quite. Are you talking about like, are they asking about like formal testing experience, like Jest and that sort of thing? But I think you have a great start here. And I think you'll definitely want to highlight some of those, personal projects, your business. Um, I would skip that part about, couldn't, don't talk about not getting work. Just skip that part. Talk about the things that you did accomplish. So, um, yeah, you can definitely talk about the engineering, the teaching, the entrepreneurship, the fact that you have pursued personal projects in React, React Native, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things you'll want to highlight and just skip over any of the parts where you couldn't find a job. Olseti, so there is absolutely chat on LinkedIn. You can message people back and forth and you can start up a conversation there. Again, it's not about what is social media, what isn't social media, that kind of thing. Just any platform, you got to put yourself out there. I would suggest Twitter. Um, Start putting your projects out on Twitter, message back and forth with people, and it's you can say you can post a resume on there, but who's going to come across it? Somebody might. Just do it. Who cares? Put it on there. Don't take yourself out of the game because you think nobody's going to see it. Just do it. Put it on there. Put yourself anywhere and everywhere, regardless of whether you think anybody's going to see it or not. Put it on there, give it a little while, message people on LinkedIn. You can have a back and forth conversation there, message people on Twitter, message people on Facebook. Don't take something out of the game because you think it's not a valid social media or a way to interact with people. Just do it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody's going to say, I don't want to talk to you. Okay, fine. Talk to somebody else. If you go into it with the sense that it's not going to work, then it's not going to work. So, and clearly the current approach hasn't been working, so try a different approach. You know, sometimes you got to change it up. Building your own server, hey, that's awesome, Spigot. Nerdable says, I have a bachelor's in business and did part of a web development associates online. I've learned most by starting the 100 Devs program. Yeah, I would actually agree. I have my undergrad in statistics, but I hated it. It was pretty terrible. Um, I didn't apply anything from that. Everything that I've learned, I've either learned on the job or through 100 devs. So highly agree. Madeline says the cowboy hat. Jeff Bezos' cowboy hat is a crime against humanity. I would agree. Hey, Rask. How's it going? Sorry I'm late on the hello. Andy Gaming, I would not say that your experience was chaotic at all. No, not at all. Sometimes it's just about if you have a very if you have a varied background. Sometimes it's more about, all right, how do I pick the best elements from my varied background to sort of it's almost like forming the point of the spear, right? All of the things in your background have helped gather your skills to the point where you are today. And so what are the strongest bricks in that pyramid that you can use to build up to the tip where you are now? So Ralph Hossein, welcome to the chat. Yeah, I'm happy to help you out, but I'm going to need a little bit about what does your background look like, Ralph? See if can you give me something to work with that. Tell me a little bit about your experience, about what you've done in the past, where you're at in your career, that type of thing, and we can sort of try to figure out a nice blurb for you. So Jellybean says, I think the issue is going from freelance to paid full time employment. Yeah. So again, if you're coming from freelance, um, you're going to need to make sure that you can highlight your specific accomplishments and show that you have been actively growing and developing your skills as a freelancer for you know however long, right? You're going to need to be ready to demonstrate those projects on your GitHub and on your portfolio and be like, look, this is the cool stuff that I can do, to show that you had a continuous path of learning and development even if you weren't traditionally employed. So you'll need to be ready to demonstrate your projects and your accomplishments during that time. So take your B. You can see about what 100 devs is by doing exclamation point Leon in chat. I can do it for you. So feel free to check it out yourself. It's not a traditional boot camp. It's a free program. So you can start out from zero knowledge of web development, and learn how to become a web developer for free with I mean, I'm serious, absolutely no cost. Everything's on YouTube, Twitch, Discord. All the lessons are out there for anybody to access at any time. And then once you've learned how to do some coding, then you can learn how to get a job and you can network with others on the Discord, to hone your job skills and really ace those interviews, right? Because it's in the end, it's not about how many languages you know or how long you've been in tech, right? Or what degrees you have. It's about, can you sell yourself effectively in an interview and sell the skills that you have and show off your accomplishments. And so that's one of the greatest advantages of 100 devs, is that it helps you with that part as well. It doesn't just teach you how to build a calculator and then kick you to the curb, right? You don't blow 10 grand to learn how to build tic-tac-toe and then get tossed to the side and given a certificate and being like, hooray, you're done, bye. It's more about, okay, now you know this stuff, now how do you get a job? So that's the main advantage of 100 devs, and the fact that it's free and you don't have to blow 10 grand. So that's the main selling point, I would say. So Ralph Hussein says, I completed a bachelor's in computer science. Awesome. I have 5 years experience in the IT industry, more on a technical support side. Okay, yeah, technical support is great. And for a lot of the reasons that we've already talked about. So you can interact effectively with customers. You can take in customer issues, which are often very difficult to diagnose, right? I've been in a technical support role before. And yeah, a lot of the times they'll just be like, I got an error, or it's the screen is doing a thing, and you're like, okay, but like, what is it doing? Like, what is happening? I need more information. And so you often have to take these very nebulous, abstract issues and using limited information effectively and quickly diagnose them. And then translate that information back to the customer to actually solve the problem. So, yeah, IT technical support is incredibly difficult, and an incredible skill to have. So you'll definitely want to highlight that. Talk about the specific types of things you did while in that support role. So, what were the types of issues that you solved? Can you, associate, like, how many issues did you solve per day? Can you say, like, successfully resolved up to 50 customer service issues in a single day? Um, Diagnose complex problems with, XYZ tools and software. Communicated technical information effectively to non-technical customers. Those are definitely things you want to highlight. Um, and then again, like, what types of tools you worked with when you were doing that technical support. And then if you can show some of the projects that you've done, coding projects that you've done that maybe relate to technical support. So maybe you can build an app that helps track technical support metrics, right? Logging tickets, logging call times, that kind of thing. So if you can build an app that fills a niche related to your past experience, that can be an excellent thing that you can talk about during the interview. So for your blurb, I would suggest that you say something like, uh, you know, experienced in technical support with X, Y, and Z tools. Effective. It has very effective communication skills, communicating with non-technical audiences, diagnosing, troubleshooting, um, and prioritization and efficiency. Those are some of the keywords that I would probably highlight. Fafin has a great point here. They say, something I got out of consulting. You meet a lot of people whose position doesn't seem to match their capabilities, 100%. But they have a great resume. Yeah. That's just because they were confident enough to apply to those jobs, rock the interviews, when most of us don't have that confidence. Yep. There's a lot of senior engineers in mid career positions because they're intimidated by the job posting. Yeah, I was. For the role that I'm in now, I wasn't going to apply. I wasn't going to do anything to pursue that role for the role I'm in now. One of my coworkers was like, you should apply to that. Like, you should get in there. You should talk to the manager and, like, and kind of get in there. And I was like, yeah, no, because at the time I was a data analyst, and this was a senior dev role. But this coworker was like, no, just do it. Like, I mean, what do you have to lose, right? And I was like, yeah, actually, what do I have to lose? What's the worst that could happen? I don't make it. Okay, fine. Like, whatever. I'll just stay in my current role. And so that coworker was absolutely right. You don't, like Fafin said, don't take yourself out of the game. You just, a little confidence can go a long way. A little confidence, a little preparation, a little practice can go a long way and get you farther than you think you might be able to go. So don't preemptively exclude yourself just because of what the position says in terms of years of experience, in terms of, what they say they want, because they don't know what they want. Bigness says bachelor's in accounting. Okay. Played college football. Woo, wow. Sales background of 10 years in consumer electronics. Looks like there was more there, but I don't see it. Okay. But anyway, I can go with what we have here. Played college football. Okay, so that's definitely something you want to bring up just for more of, like, the interest factor, and especially that, balancing a college degree and college athletics um, takes a lot of prioritization, planning, scheduling ability, and just, if you say, yeah, I played college football, for the sports fans out there, who are interviewing you, there's probably going to be a natural organic discussion that comes out of that, and they're going to remember you a little bit more. They're going to be like, oh, that's the football person, that person played football. So just something to kind of stick in their heads a little bit. Sales background of 10 years in consumer electronics. Yeah, so a lot of, like we've already talked about, again, sales and service, retail, customer facing roles, those are great, because they give you, the communication skills, the translation skills. You have to translate customer needs and balance those against the capabilities of the product, right? Because you have to know everything the product can and can't do. And then the customer says, well, I want it to do this. And you have to say, all right, do these needs meet in the middle, or do I have to kind of lower expectations on the customer side? Do I have to find them a different product? So what that requires you to know the insides and outs of both what the customer wants, translate those needs into technical specs, and then know all of the products that you have available to create that match between customer and product, right? So absolutely, that's a fantastic skill, and also that you were in, the electronics field, that helps a little bit, because it's like, yeah, that's fairly technical. You have to know. I don't know what you sold, but you have to know, product specs, product technical capabilities, that kind of thing. So you definitely want to highlight those specific skills when you're talking about yourself. Rascus, now I'm hired and I love my job. Yay! Yeah, take U or B. Absolutely. They say, I'm still a beginner, only been coding for a couple months since picking it back up. I'll check it out. Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of folks that are starting out in 100 devs all the time. And so you'll definitely find folks that are on the same path as you. You can link up with them. A lot of folks have started study groups where they just work together on stuff. And they practice concepts together. They do the homework together. It's just a nice way to, like, the program overall is just a nice way to guide your learning. Baffin says, but when you become successful, you can either think, I was so lucky, or you can think, I handled that well. And the difference is often the difference in confidence. Yeah. So you can either take ownership of your successes, or you can just attribute it to luck. And so that often requires a shift in mindset, right? You can say, well, everything I've ever done well in the past, I just got lucky, right? Circumstances aligned, the stars aligned, all those things. It was just luck. I didn't really do anything, you know. It, I just got lucky. I just stumbled into it, all that sort of thing. Or you can say, I read the situation and I knew when to apply myself. I knew what to say at the right time in order to make these circumstances line up and get me into the right position at the right time. So I really like that distinction there, Fafin. You can either think I was lucky, or you can actually own your success and say, yes, I handled that well in order to accomplish that goal. So I love that. Mavi says, I did tech support for a while, and I have 7 polite ways to tell old folks that I don't know their password. That's amazing. Uh, oh, I got the job. Oh, are you talking about the job that I didn't think I was qualified for? Oh yeah, yeah. That's I've actually had that job for since late 2021. Yeah, that's how long I've been a senior dev. Yeah. So I was actually before I started 100 devs, but I wanted to keep learning. So I got the job as a senior dev, and then I was like, wait, I need to know more things. I'm a senior dev now. I should learn more. And so that's shortly after that, in January of the next year, I started 100 devs. So even though I already had a job, I was still doing 100 devs just because it's worth it to keep learning and to keep growing and developing. We need to take another break here, but I'm just going to get caught up with chat. Yeah, Faffin dropping knowledge bombs here. Sometimes user errors are because we didn't understand their needs. Sometimes it's because they're afraid to do something wrong. Absolutely true. Technical people can do a lot to help resolve those two issues at least, even if there's still straight up user error. 100%. Yeah. Um, Sometimes there's translation problems between customer and assistants. And sometimes, yeah, the customer is just afraid to try anything because their level of understanding is such that they think if they touch something, they'll break it, right? Yeah, and Spigot brings up one last great point that I'd like to before we go on break here. Another great thing I'd like to mention too is that a lot of times job descriptions are written by HR, right? They're given like a skeleton of some basic needs from like the devs, and then HR writes the rest of the description. And so a lot of times they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just gonna say like, yeah, this sounds good if we get somebody with 5 years and whatever, when a language hasn't even existed for 5 years. So yeah, you're not going to get somebody with 5 years experience in something that was invented 2 years ago, right? So don't take those numbers as gospel. Um, Again, it's all about what can you bring to the table and show them your worth. Yeah. So don't let the don't let those stupid numbers in the job description hold you back. Um, that is absolutely, not, they don't mean anything. Yeah, it's a nice to have list of skills, not mandatory ones. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and Bigness, going back to your story there. So yeah, you sold consumer electronics and software as a service. Okay, great. So yeah, you can definitely use that selling software as a service to, again, highlight that you understand technical requirements of software. And then you know how to translate customer needs to technical software requirements and really speak that language of software, right? Truly understand the specs, understand the inner workings. Can it deliver for this customer? Can it not? So yeah, absolutely highlight that software component of in your past experience. Okay, let's take a break. 5 minutes. When we come back, we're going to keep talking. I'm loving the conversation so far. Um, and Vokbook has asked, "What is 100 devs?" So in chat, Vokbook, while we're on break, go ahead and do exclamation point Leon in chat, and check out the website, check out the Discord. And I need to put a link to the YouTube channel in that command. But if somebody also wants us to drop the link to Leon's YouTube channel, that would be appreciated. But I'm going to take 5 minutes. We're going to come back and keep talking. All right, folks, we got about a minute left in the break. Well, a little less now. Um, but yeah, come on back if you're coming back. If you've been sitting this entire time, even during the break, get up right now if you're able to do so, and roll your shoulders, roll your arms, roll your wrists, roll your neck, and stretch out just a little bit. Stretch your arms, get a drink of water, and then come back. Hey, rascal. Hey, A Fuzzy. You can message me on Twitter if you would like, A Fuzzy. I'm Mayan Wolf on Twitter as well, so feel free to shoot me a message. Um, yeah, and I'll see if I hear from you. All right, let's go ahead and get back to it, shall we? Get my camera back on here. All right. Hi, folks. My hair just seems to keep getting more and more fuzzed up as we go. It's been moving around a lot, I guess. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Rask. They say, as a sales manager, I learned Python to automate boring tasks. That's fantastic. I love it when you can tie your you can tie your projects back to real needs in a previous experience or previous job. So you learn Python. I started a big project sponsored by my previous boss that let me do programming 1 day a week. Awesome. That's my favorite day. I transformed my job into my first freelancing client and started my freelance company. Yeah, that's great. Your it shows how you tied projects into your previous experience, but then it also shows how you developed your skills over time, uncovered a passion, and then applied that passion to an actual, to a career later on. So it shows a progression and a and growth over time, which is a great way to portray yourself. That's awesome. Ryan says Python was my first language. Yeah, I feel like it was a lot of people's first language. My first language was SQL, but that was really just a matter of chance. Ross says, I did 30 plus projects over 2 years, wanted to work with a team and also become full stack. Um, yeah, so one of my US clients offered me a long term contract. Now looking for an opportunity in Europe as the time zone is complicated. Yeah, absolutely. So that shows again your progression over time, your slow transition into more long term work, less freelance, more traditional sort of employment. And then now what you want out of your next role. So this story is 30% false, mostly dates, number of project. Yeah, hey, it's I think what it does mostly, what I read of that mostly is that it highlights your skills, right? It highlights your skills and your progression. It's less about the specific dates and timelines, more about how have you transformed over time. Uh, Akarimon says, question about 100 devs. I usually take classes for extended education through MIT. Is it possible for someone with a lot of experience to sign up and go through the camp at their own pace? Yeah, that's what a lot of people do is they'll just go through at their own pace. They'll follow along with as many lessons as they want in whatever time period they want. Um, and you might find that some of the stuff you already know, and that's fine. You can skip that, or what I would suggest is that you watch the lesson anyway and you practice what's in it to reinforce the skills that you already have, right? And you might learn a different way of doing something. If it's maybe it's something you already know, but it's applied in a slightly different way. A lot of what 100 devs is about is practical application of skills, right? So you could already know, oh yeah, I know how to, I know what Node is, right? Or I know how to build an API. Okay, but how often have you applied those skills and what have you built with them? So it's more about, okay, applying them, real world applications, building specific projects, getting clients, that kind of thing. And then at the end, how do I get a job with those skills? So it's very practical. And so I would suggest, yeah, reviewing the lessons, going at your own pace, doing all of the homeworks, even if it's things you think you already know, and then also following through with all of the job hunt skills as well. Build up your resume, build up your LinkedIn, build up your GitHub, your socials, all that stuff, because that's what's going to land you the job. So I hope that helps answer your question, Akariman. Essentially, you can go through it at whatever pace you want, as long as you do the work. Yeah, Rask, I would agree with that. It's all about the transition and the growth in your story there. Yeah. Mavi says, technically, someone taught me COBOL when I was 6. Wow, that is hefty for a 6-year-old to take on. That's mad props. So I have a ton of experience. Yeah, sure. Rocket says, to learn how to use a professional text editor is more important than any programming language. Yeah, so well, there's a lot of different ways to edit code, right? You can get it. You can have an advantage if you can use some of the more widely used editors, VS Code, I don't know, Atom, Vim, that sort of thing. But really, you can write code on Notepad if you want to. So it's, I would say again, it's not about what is the right thing to learn. It's about, can you demonstrate your skills, right? And can you show a grasp, an ability to create, an ability to build, an ability to sell your past experiences. It's less about specifically what you know and how you sell yourself in those interviews. BDS says Notepad is better than IDEs. See, everybody's going to have different opinions on what's best, right? So, I mean, hey, no judgments from me either way. Is basically all right. Fine, I could write it on stone tablets and engrave them on the hard disk with a needle. Am I still building things? Yes. Okay, fine. Then you're fine. Oh, thank you for coming, Ralph Hussein. Happy to be a part of 100 devs. Yeah, that's awesome, Ralph. So normally I do more project focused streams. So if this is the first time you're tuning in, this is a little bit unusual for me. But once every couple months, I like to do streams where we focus on sort of behavioral type interview questions, story crafting, um, getting interviews, marketing your experience, that kind of thing. And so this is one of those days where we just kind of focus on that sort of thing in a very informal and low stress environment. Because a lot of folks are kind of reluctant to, just jump in and start trying things. And so this is where we can kind of spitball and share our backgrounds and how do we craft our stories to be the most effective as possible in generating interest and doing well in interviews. Rask says recruiters have been lying for years on requirements. Why not lying back about my background? Yeah. So no, there's no restrictions on the types of things that you can say when you're marketing yourself. What's important is that you need to be able to back it up in some way if you are, inquired about it later, right? So let's say that the position asks for React knowledge. Well, yeah, you could absolutely pick up some skills over the weekend and then go in and just blow the interviewer away with your React skills, right? They don't have to know that you just learned React over the weekend. And what's important is that you were actually able to demonstrate those skills when you were called on it on an interview. So, you know, if you say, "Oh yeah, I have 5 years of React," and then you don't make any effort to learn any React over the weekend prior to the interview, then yeah, you're out of luck. But if you did, then show it off. Rocket says, when I say professional text editor, I mean Vim, of course. Uh-huh. Let me tell you, there's plenty of devs out there that do all their work in Notepad++ and they're just fine. Again, it's not about the tools that you use. It's about what can you actually produce? BTS says the president of the programming club in my college only used Notepad and refused IDEs because he thought it was too easy. What is easy, man? I would use like Chat GPT to write all of my code if that made it easier for me, and then just because I could produce more product, right? More output. Mavi says there's no crying in baseball and no honesty in the job hunt. Yep. It's important to when we're talking about like tools and what's best and all those sorts of things, um, it's really important to not gatekeep yourself. Don't take yourself out of the job hunt just because you don't know one specific thing, right? like, oh no, this, I've seen some jobs asking for SQL and I don't know SQL, so maybe I just shouldn't apply at all, or maybe I shouldn't network in my way in at all. No, that's not true. Don't take yourself out just because you don't know one small part of what they're asking for. Sometimes that won't even matter. BTS says he was constantly debugging, the person that wrote everything in Notepad. Yeah, yeah. Code editors are built to edit code. So, I mean, might as well use one of those that's going to help, give you a helping hand and look over your shoulder and check for bugs, right? Yeah. So, I don't know if anybody else has had the same experience, but I took one programming class in college and I hated it. I hated it so much that it took me out of the running to get into coding for the next like 7 years, or however. I don't know how long it's been since I graduated, but anyway, it knocked me out of ever thinking about coding for years afterwards. So in this programming class in college, um, we had to it was a Java class, and for all of our exams we had to write out code by hand on paper. So I'm curious if this was something that anybody else experienced, and how you felt about it when you had to do it. Because yeah, that me and that Java class, we did not get along, and I just honestly after that I thought I was too dumb to code. I mean, that's what I told myself, just like, well, you're too dumb to code, but you can do other things, so go do those other things, when that was absolutely not true. And unfortunately, I'm sure it had that effect on, lots of other very qualified people, um, who could have learned to code if it was taught differently. So I'm just curious if other people have had that same experience. Bobby said some senior devs take pride in their inefficiency. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but sometimes people use, the less efficient tools because they're attached to them, right? They're like, well, I've used this for years and it works, so I'm not going to skip away from it. When there's other tools out there that could really, increase their output and increase their accuracy and that kind of thing. And I think what's important is that what's the mark of a really good dev is that if you can demonstrate to them that something is unequivocally better, that they're willing to learn and change and grow and take that step to a potentially better tool. Um, so I mean, I think that's true experience if you're willing to change. Ackerman says, I remember when I was 13 and started programming in Pascal, we had to draw out a diagram for the first 4 weeks before writing our first lines of code. Wow. Definitely had a few classes like logic that were pure abstract theory rather than code itself. Yeah. Drunk Uncle Grandma says, University of Akron, our quizzes were handwritten paper answers for questions on a projector. Oof, yeah. It's just, I don't know. That kind of thing I just cannot handle that. It's like, just let me build things from the code. That's going to teach me far more than rote memorization and trying to remember where to put my semicolons, in writing in pencil on a piece of paper, honestly. Thank you for the follow, Blockbook and Nihil. Also, take your B, Raketo Punch, Gambi, Silly Only, Akarimon. Yes, thank you all for the follows. Mavi says, I had a boss that was very against all messaging, including email, so we had to print everything. Oh my gosh. Really? That's wow. That sounds like something like on The Office or something like that. Like, wow, that's amazing that really happened. Ralph says, honestly, a lot of people want to get into programming, but they do not know how to do it. I'm one of them as well. Yeah, and I think that's kind of a problem is that, there are some people who are really self-motivated and they're going to learn to code just jumping in and, building stuff right out the gate, and some aren't. And some people need just a little bit of a path to like, okay, how do I start this? I have no idea what I'm doing. How do I what do I do to get started? And so that's why I think that there needs to be other avenues to learn to code that are free, accessible, that don't require college, don't require a down payment of like a car, like you could use to buy a used car. And there needs to be free, accessible alternatives out there, which is why 100 Devs is great. Because yeah, it guides you in getting started, and then you can use those skills to do whatever the heck you want. Kiambi says, coding on paper. I know how that feels. We wrote our code on paper when I was still a student. We only got to test it once a week during computer class. Bringing a laptop to school wasn't a thing. Yeah, yeah. So I was when I was in college, it was just on the edge of where like people were starting to bring laptops to class. It wasn't like super common. Um, some people did, but they were still kind of pretty heavy and like not like super portable yet. Um, and so yeah, a lot of folks just hand wrote their stuff, and a lot of the computer class stuff that we did was you had to go to the computer lab to do this stuff. And so yeah, I mean, I'm not. It's amazing how technology has evolved because I mean, I only graduated in like 20, I don't know, 2014, and that was still, things were still changing back then. The senior dev of my team didn't write a single line of code last week. Yeah. Well, Spaghetti, sometimes, reading code and doing code review can be helpful because you learn alternative ways to implement things that you might think you already know. And then you read the code and you're like, oh, huh, that's not how I would have done it, but that's an interesting way to do it. Maybe I should try that. Yeah, code review can be difficult, but so at my current employer, we do whenever somebody finishes a full, like what we call it, mapping, which is well, a full workflow. Um, so workflow consists of multiple different mappings, each of which contain kind of like an operation, like um, of transforming database data from start to finish and taking it from a source and loading it into a target. And there can be multiple transformations that happen along the way. And so these workflows can have multiple different components. And so we usually do our reviews as a group. So the person finishes their entire workflow, they'll bring it up in front of the group, and we all kind of walk through it together and review together. And so I've learned some good stuff that way. Sometimes other people do things differently than I would. And it's like, oh wait, how did you do that, or what did you do there? That's interesting. How does that work? And sometimes it'll be, well, you did it that way, but somebody else might say, but I've done it that way before, and that's going to cause a problem, so you probably shouldn't do that. And so that can be some advantages of that as well. Vocbook says it's 100 devs only for POC. No, anybody can. It's completely open to anybody. So there is another organization called Resilient Coders, which is kind of like the precursor to this, but 100 devs is fully virtual and anyone can join. Our man says, is analyzing other solutions on Code Wars considered code review? If you want it to be. If you can sell it as code review, then yeah. Rask says, do you work with Scrum? So we are just now at my current employer. We're just now sort of incorporating agile principles into our development. So talking about like you know we had sprints previously, but now we're starting to get into like allocating points and time management, and doing more sort of agile meetings and require sort of shifting priorities based on customer needs and that kind of thing. So we're slowly sort of incorporating agile principles into development, and I really like it so far. It makes things much more flexible. We don't have these like, because before we would have strict deadlines for sprints, and it's like you have to get these 5 things done by the end of this sprint. But sometimes the customer wouldn't even be ready for that, right? They're like, you're getting these 5 things done because you're supposed to, and then the customer is not even ready to test, so they can't give you any feedback, and the customer feels overwhelmed because we've given them too many things. And so now we've got this sort of back and forth, like customer says, oh well, I'm not ready to test that, but I could take on this smaller thing. And so you're like, okay, we'll pivot to that, we'll do that instead, we'll get that for the next sprint. Or hold these things to the next sprint, this needs to be moved up, that kind of thing. So we've been doing more agile stuff, not all of it, but sort of rolling into that as we go. Um, Ralph says a lot of developers are opting toward TDD. Is that something will be taught in 100 devs? Um, so I don't believe that's actually covered. I think Leon wanted to cover it, but I don't think he got that far at least in the current set of classes. It may be something that he chooses to cover in the future. Um, Could you share a resource that I could add to my list of study? I don't really personally have many resources on agile, test driven development, that kind of thing. But if anybody else has a favorite resource that they want to share, feel free to do so. No worries, Spigot. Ross, because I've been given easy user stories. It's super cool to finish those small pieces. Yeah, it's a nice accomplishment when you can take a little encapsulated story and take it start to finish and just be like, boop, done. Yeah, it feels nice. That's a good point, Rascal. So Code Wars and LeetCode, they're all test-driven development, right? You're building something and then crossing your fingers that it's going to pass the tests, and it can't be signed off until it does pass the tests. Exactly, it's test-driven development. Yep. So Sunnybro, as far as purchasing domains and backend and server and that kind of thing, Leon does have that is in the class material. Leon does cover that as far as free resources that you can use to host things, um, and free, like you can have free database storage up to a certain point on like places like MongoDB, Supabase, that kind of thing. There are free options available that you don't have to purchase. Also, free domains, so you can host things um, on various places that are free. I don't remember the full list, but yeah, there's plenty of places you can host things, get a free domain name, or you can pay for a low cost domain name too, so you don't have to spend a bunch of money. But yeah, there are. Leon has talked about that in class. Um, oh, not sure how to speak to a client about those types of things. So how to have that conversation with them? Well, what I've done in the past is just have the conversation. Just be like, so if you would like a custom domain name, here's the types of services that we can purchase that from, and then you pass those costs on to the client. You're just like, and here's how much it would cost to, you ask them, what do you want your domain name to look like? Well, here's about how much that would cost. You just bake that into the contract. Um, and that becomes part of the overall cost of using you to do the development. So I mean, I would just be upfront with the client, just be like, look, these things, I can use these free options, which are gonna you have X, Y, and Z amount of storage and that kind of thing, or we can pay a little bit of money and you can get X, Y, and Z amount of storage and a custom domain name and all those things, and just be upfront and tell them the advantages, and then be like, you're going to be passing the cost on to them, but you're going to be the one setting it up. So that's the value that you bring. Yeah, I mean, you just be honest with them. Just be like, look, we can do the free way or the cost way. With the free way, it's free, but you might have limitations on how your domain name will look. Might have limited storage, that kind of thing, and you can list those things out for them. Or you can, we can tack on, I don't know, X number of dollars for this specific domain name, this amount of storage, and they get to pick which one they want. Because in the end, it's all the same to you, right? You're building something for them, and in the end, you're going to deliver it to them, and there you have it. How they want that to look in the long term is up to them. Oh, nice. So Drunk Uncle Grandma says Rachel, who works at Cyclic, made a troubleshooting video for Cyclic, which is another way you can host things. Um, and so they might be able to help troubleshoot that. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Drunk Uncle Grandma. Hey, Rascal. Yeah, I think you should go to Portugal. That might be fun. Oh yeah, I love Rachel. They have great stuff. Hey, Rollerblade, welcome. All right, so I think we've got about another 20 or so minutes in this stream. I'm happy to do some more story crafting if you all want, or if anybody else has something they want to talk about, I'm happy to do that too. This is a fairly informal stream today. For those of you who are newer to my streams, normally I do like more project focused work. We'll build something from start to finish. We'll practice certain concepts. But today, what we're doing is primarily interview prep, story crafting, talking about your past experiences, whether they're in tech or whether they're outside of tech, and learning how to really sell those experiences in an interview setting. So if anybody has a background that they're not sure how to talk about themselves, you're welcome to share it here, or we can talk about really anything else you want. Yeah, thank you for sharing those resources on Cyclic. That's really helpful. And yeah, I forgot that Rachel got a job at Cyclic. That's awesome. I got to look up their GitHub. That's so cool. I like seeing people succeed. It's awesome. Rask says, I'm going to bed. Can't wait for Monday to work again. I can't even imagine myself saying that in my previous job. Yeah. And so I think that's an advantage that I don't know. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but I have. So like in previous roles, you just feel like you'd feel a sense of dread, right? Going into the next day, you'd be like, oh, weekend is ending. I gotta freaking go to work tomorrow, right? Like you're like, I'm so glad it's the weekend. It's going to be Monday tomorrow, and that's going to suck. And you sort of start to feel that like sense of anxiety. Um, and you don't realize how unnatural that feeling is until you get a position where you don't feel that anymore. Um, and yeah, I would say like Rask in my current position, I don't feel that way. I have some things that I'm excited. So I took off work tomorrow. I took PTO for funsies. But I'll be going back on Tuesday, and I'm excited because I have some things that I want to demonstrate to the group. Um, right now at my current job, we're working on not only switching to agile, but also implementing more robust version control. So I'm actually spearheading Git. So I'm the person on my team who is I'm piloting Git for the group, um, and demonstrating some of the advantages of Git. So far, I've sold it to a couple people, and they're very excited about it. So I'm excited to keep that momentum going. Also, switching to VS Code as our code editor. We kind of talked about that earlier, as far as the different types of things that people use for code editing, and yeah, I will tell you that my team does not currently use a modern code editor, so I'm trying to get folks switched over to VS Code so we can use some of that native Git integration that's built into VS Code, and really get the best of all worlds there. VS Code is pretty good, yeah, and it's Microsoft and it's free, which helps a lot. Yeah. Ah, Dan can code. Thank you so much for the resub. I appreciate it. I hope you're having a good day. Oh, thank you, Dan. Yeah, and the Git lens extension, absolutely count the shells. I was actually planning on installing that when I get back to work on Tuesday. Looking at, because it looks like Git lens can do a lot of the things that we want to do as a team with Git. So definitely going to install that. Take Your B says, could you give an idea of a baseline requirement in terms of competence you feel should be aimed for before applying to junior front end positions? A lot of advice I've heard is fairly vague and not too consistent. So, yeah, I would say there's not a single set of bullet points that's going to say you get a job and you don't get a job. However, there's certain things that you can do to increase your advantage and your ability to do well in interviews. So, some of the things that you can do is have a well structured GitHub with projects that you feel highlight your skills, right? So you want to have your GitHub, you want to have your projects on your GitHub. And so that way in an interview, you can say you have some skills in React or something like that, or skills in, I don't know, Tailwind or CSS. You can say, and I have a project on my GitHub that I think really highlights those skills. You can pull it up, show it to them, and be like, yeah, and this is the type of thing that I can do. Um, Another thing that you should do is make sure that you have a well tailored LinkedIn, and that you're just I don't know, that you're just advertising yourself well, right? That you're highlighting your skills at any opportunity, that you're highlighting your experience, and also that you can answer behavioral questions well. So by behavioral questions, what we mean are things like when is a time that you've come into conflict with a coworker and how did you handle that conflict? You know, really actual questions on how you behave in certain situations. So we talked about that earlier. There's actually a certain checklist of questions that you can practice. And so you should be fluent in those questions. And we call that list of questions the bank. Um, so I can link you to that. Give me 1 second. And if you can practice these questions, that'll set you up well for handling it when they come up in an interview. Um, but yeah, I can't give you a specific checklist of things to say you're ready or you're not ready. But what I can say is that when you can build things with code, then you should start networking. You should start practicing the interview questions. You should start building things, putting them on your GitHub, fleshing out your LinkedIn, and just making sure that you're networking and highlighting your skills. Now, if you want some help with networking and really accentuating your skills, I would suggest following 100 Devs. So there's a lot of really good job advice, and it's all free. I don't know if you're already in 100 Devs. Getting the command going here. So check out some of those things. Check out the Discord. There's lots of great information there. Check out the YouTube for some videos that'll should help you out on that hunt. I will say, don't take yourself out of the game. There's never a bad time to start looking for a job. So don't keep telling yourself you're not ready. Make yourself ready. So don't take yourself out of the game. Put yourself into the game by making yourself as ready as possible. And just get started. Go do it. Thank you for the follow, Franklin. Spaghetti says, I think with remote jobs, you don't get the feeling of liking your job. No, not true. I've been remote for the last, well, since 2020, actually, since April, I think April of 2020. And I freaking love my job. It's rad. I love rolling out of bed, getting some coffee, going to sit down in my fancy chair with a heated blanket on my lap, a fish tank behind me, computers in front of me, and my dog, lying down on the floor beside me. It's amazing. I love it. And I don't feel any less passion for my job because I'm at home. Blade says, what do you think about learning Git through regular terminal rather than VS Code? Yeah, so I've done both. For me personally, I would say that I feel like Git works better through the terminal, like using the command line. I feel like it's faster, more responsive, it performs better. Um, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it through the VS Code UI either. I mean, whatever helps you get the job done, right? So, like for my coworkers, a lot of I've been teaching them through the terminal, through the UI, through the VS Code UI, because I think it's easier to teach like visually that way. But I also am going to teach them how to do it through the command line too, so everybody can do their preference, which they prefer. But I personally prefer the command line, even though I'm teaching my coworkers via the UI right now. Dan says, um, Mind Wolf, have you been on the interviewer side of the table? Any opinions on the technical interview or take home tests? So I have been on the interviewer side of the table. And I will say that in the interviews that I've participated in, the primary focus and the thing that we talked the most about was the answers to the behavioral stuff. It was more about like, okay, is this person going to be a good cultural fit for us? Because any limitations that they had on like the technical side, it was more of like, okay, maybe they're not quite where we want them to be, but based on their answers, they actually seem like they're super teachable. So we could probably teach that. Any of their technical limitations, if they show themselves to be adaptable and teachable, then heck yeah, we're going to try to teach them and just get them up to speed. So one of the newest people on our team right now, is actually someone who, um, is like basically a first time dev, kind of like I was, except they come from like a business analyst background. I think was their last role. Um, and it was more about like, wow, okay, this person actually seems super teachable. So despite their somewhat technical limitations, actually, we're just going to probably be able to train them up right quick. And that was pretty much the truth. I mean, they showed they just dove right in. Any limitations, they asked questions about, like, I don't understand this. Can someone help me, please? And then they picked the stuff up. They ran with it. They remained super positive. And I mean, yeah, just got them up to speed really quickly. So it was more about like, are they going to be a good cultural fit, and less about checking XYZ technical skills off of their resume. Handy Gaming says, I always think I'm not ready. Self doubting really sucks. Yeah. The first step is being aware of that, being aware that it's just self doubt and it's not necessarily a real limitation. Um, so the best way to get past that is to acknowledge that. So, like, yes, I am feeling self doubt right now, but I need to proceed forward anyway because this is not real. This is internal self doubt. This is not, so this is me internalizing and being in my own head. This is not necessarily how others see me, right? Others are going to look at me differently than I look at myself. So why not take the chance and let others look at me rather than self-judging before others even see me? So you can acknowledge your own feelings and then say, "Yes, this is how I see myself at the moment, but this is probably not how others see me. So I'm going to give others the chance to acknowledge my skills and accomplishments." Yeah, exactly. And Dia again repping their accomplishment, which is awesome. I'm so glad that they brought that up first thing on the stream, and I'm glad they're bringing it up again now. Um, yeah, they got hired as a full stack React engineer on Friday, and they're a 100 Devs alum. And 100 Devs didn't even really focus heavily on React, but yet here they are. They got hired as a full stack React engineer because they didn't take themselves out of the game. Yes, and the most important thing is, can you represent yourself well in behavioral, and answer those behavioral questions so that they see you as someone who would be a good culture fit, able to learn, able to grow, and really able to mold themselves to fit in with the rest of the team, and that will make up for any perceived, technical gaps. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, take your beat. I'm glad you like the document. Those are the most common behavioral and technical questions. I know that's a very long document, that list of questions, the Banky. But what I would recommend is focus on the behavioral. That should be your main focus. Practice those the most. You can definitely answer the rest of the questions, but focus on the behavioral portion. Vokbook says, I've stuck on PHP for the last 5 years and I don't know how to change stacks. Do you have an experience of changing a tech stack? Yes, I do actually. So um, I started out just writing SQL. Didn't know anything else. I basically thought web pages were magic. I didn't know, I didn't even do like the Neopets thing like a lot of people did when they were younger, building MySpace or Neopets pages out of HTML. I didn't have good enough internet to do that. So I didn't do any of that stuff growing up. Um, I started out learning SQL and only SQL, and I developed that for a few years. Um, and then I decided, you know what? I'm going to learn something else. So now I've switched to learning JavaScript, MongoDB, it's like NoSQL backend, and HTML, CSS. So I think the most important thing when changing stacks, is to, for me anyway, the way that I like to learn is by doing, so applying myself. So finding like tutorials or simple projects that you can build from start to finish that'll start to teach you concepts, apply those concepts, end up with a real product at the end. Um, and as you build more and more things, you start to see patterns, which will teach you when and where to apply certain concepts and things. And so for me anyway, the what kept me going and motivated in learning this new stack, was actually like learning the code and then immediately applying it to something, and ending up with a finished product of some kind. So following tutorials, of course, participating in 100 devs and following along with the homework assignments there really helped me out. So if you want to get into JavaScript and web development, I would suggest picking up with 100 devs, and just doing all the assignments, and that will build you up from zero to hero as far as that goes. Um, but yeah, that was the biggest thing for me, was actually learning something and then immediately applying it. Web pages are not magic, web animations are. Yeah, agreed. And also, honestly, so even coming from a fairly different looking like language from SQL to JavaScript, SQL and JavaScript look very different when you write them. They have very different applications, but still, even knowing like the concepts are transferable if the syntax is not. So there's plenty of patterns between SQL and JavaScript, even though they're very different languages. And so knowing those patterns and concepts right out the gate definitely did help me learning JavaScript. Oh, hey, Franklin, welcome to the stream. Yeah, so today what we've been doing is mostly like story crafting and interview prep. But if you check my YouTube channel, exclamation point YouTube, you'll find a lot of project streams, which will be very helpful for you on your catch up crew journey. So if you go to my YouTube channel, and you kind of go back to like my earlier stuff, you'll find a lot of great videos that are going to help you with the earlier homework, earlier projects. So a lot of the times I think I've covered almost all of the 100 Dev homework on stream at some point, and most of that is on my YouTube channel. So feel free to check it out. Hopefully that'll be a good help for you on your journey there, Franklin. Yeah. Spaghetti says the best stack with SQL Server database. Yeah, I mean I am biased, but I do like SQL Server, SQL or any kind of SQL backend. Oh, no worries, Franklin. Vokbook says, thank you. Learn and apply a wise advice. Yeah, I mean, not everybody learns that way. Some people are excited to learn theory and abstract concepts and memorize things. I am not. I am not wired that way at all. As years of education have informed me, I do not do well with theory. I do best with learning something and then immediately turning around and saying, okay, but why does this matter? What do I do with this? How do I apply it? And so the faster I can build something, the faster I'll learn it. Beansmate says, is it even worth putting job experience that isn't even tech related on CVs? Okay, so if you have time, Beans, I would highly suggest once the stream ends, rewind it to the beginning and watch like the first hour, because that is all we talked about. Um, but in short, the answer is yes, absolutely 100%. Pull your skills that you have learned from your past experience. So, Beans, let's do it. What's your past? What have you done in the past? What, like, your past work history? You can be vague if you want, but hit me. Let's hear it. And we're going to craft it up, and we're going to take the goodies out of there, out of your past experience, and turn it into something that you can use to sell yourself in a tech interview. Mavi says, I must know all the theory. Yeah, and some people are wired that way. Some people love theory. I do not, but some people do. And so, it's important to also understand your own learning style. What do you like? And then focus on what you like, and learn it that way. Okay, so Beansmate, you worked in a shop and self-employed vehicle delivery. Okay, awesome, great. So, working in a shop is fantastic. Retail skills are great. Whenever you're working with the public, you're picking up a lot of skills that you might not even realize that you have. So, working in a shop requires that you can communicate well, obviously verbally, with customers, and you can handle people coming in spontaneously, right? A customer comes in, you have no idea what type of interaction you're going to have, but you need to be able to communicate quickly and effectively with them and figure out their needs, figure out what they want from you. Maybe they're unsatisfied, and so you got to learn how to deal with people who may be stressed, who may be unsatisfied. um, figure out their needs quickly and efficiently, and then figure out if you can meet those needs based on the products that you have. So I don't know what kind of shop you worked in, but I'm sure you had products of some kind, right? So you have to know the types of products that you have, and whether or not any of those products can help that customer. So you have to know the technical, specifications of your products. Even if it's something like, I don't know, food or candy, right? You still have to know what is in your shop so that you can sell it to them. So you have to keep priorities in mind as well, because running a shop or working in a shop requires that you have to keep the public happy, but you also have to do all the things that a shop needs to do in order to stay in business, right? You have to, count the till, clean the floors, stock the shelves. And so that requires a certain level of prioritization, time management, stress management, right? You can't like freak out in the middle of your shift and just have a meltdown and, not get anything done. Even in times of great stress, you have to be able to function and keep that prioritization, keep that time management, and get stuff done. So retail, shop management, those are great skills to have in tech. And also sometimes it's a little bit of troubleshooting, right? Sometimes a customer comes in and they're super vague. Maybe they, don't speak your language very well. And so you have to be able to troubleshoot, figure out, be given some kind of a vague statement and interpret their needs to deliver what they want from you. So troubleshooting, there it is. Troubleshooting, communication, time management, stress management, um, efficiency, ability to adapt to changing conditions. Those are all things that you get from working in a shop. And vehicle delivery. Okay, so vehicle delivery, you have to. I'm assuming some kind of like what do they call it? Like gig based sort of delivery service. That's just what I'm imagining. So, what you might say there is again, prioritization and time management. Because with that type of a gig, time is money, right? You have a certain amount of time to get the order from the source to the destination. So you have to plan your routes efficiently. You have to determine which orders you're going to take based on the cost of gas and traffic. So, is this order worth it for me? Am I going to, make a profit from this order, or am I going to, it's rush hour, so maybe I shouldn't. So prioritization, time management, um, independence. When you're doing your vehicle delivery, there's nobody telling you what to do. You're choosing what you do at any given time. So you can work effectively independently to accomplish the goal, to accomplish the needs, to complete the project. And so independent work is something you get from vehicle delivery. Um, Also, I'm assuming that, a vehicle delivery gig like that is going to require a certain also amount of schedule management as well. So you're going to have to determine, okay, what time of day is the most efficient for me to do these deliveries? So you're managing your schedule. You're figuring out logistics. How do I get something from point A to point B in the most efficient way? So logistics, schedule management, independent work. Um, and again, all those things we already talked about as far as dealing with the public at the destination. Um, so yeah, those are all skills that you can highlight about your past experience. So it's not just working in a shop, it's not just delivering things. It's all of those things that we talked about and more are skills that you have picked up along the way that you probably apply so often that you don't even think about it. You don't even realize you're doing it anymore. But you need to be cognizant of that stuff so that you can highlight it when you're in an interview and really showcase, yeah, I'm like, I can do all these things already, right? All these things that I'm going to need for a job that a lot of established devs, they struggle with that, right? They might struggle with troubleshooting. They might struggle with communicating well. They might struggle with time management, working independently. You already have all those skills. So you're already ready to go. Hey, where is code? Good to see you. Oh, we got a stretch. Okay. There we go. Oh, that was good. My neck just popped. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, and Scotty Codes brings up a good point too, as far as putting like non-tech experience on there. A resume with nothing but tech experience might actually seem a little dry. I mean, what is there to talk about there? It it's going to be like every other resume that the interviewer sees. But if you have a varied resume, like there was that person that played football, there's a person that was a tarot card reader, there's a person that people have done all sorts of really incredible things. That person that was working for what was it? Like doing robots and stuff. I mean, All of those things can be potential conversation starters that are going to make you really stand out to that interviewer. And so if you can make yourself memorable, that can also be helpful for you. Pearl Fall says, so when the interviewer asks why I left my previous job, can I be honest and say something bad about my previous employer? I would avoid saying negative things about previous employers, even if it's true. Um, just because that's going to plant the seed in the interviewer's mind that, oh, well, when they leave this job, maybe they're going to badmouth me just like they did their previous employer. And so that could make them less likely to consider you. Um, yeah, I would, even if it's true, even if you really want to slag on your previous employer, I would avoid that. I would instead turn it around and say something like, as I was, pursuing this career, I realized that I wanted a more standard work-life balance of 8-hour days, and I also wanted to better manage my holidays and my PTO. So I chose to pursue your company, as it seems like you have a very healthy culture, very healthy work-life balance, as well as um, a very efficient operation style. So instead of bad mouthing your previous employer, you're saying how the advantages of this company and the reason that you're specifically pursuing this company. So I didn't say anything negative about the previous employer. I just said, hey, I like what y'all are doing as far as your balance and your culture and your efficiency. So I think that would be another way to frame that. Flip it around, make it the positive of the positive aspects, the better aspects of the company that you're currently interviewing with. I mean, you could risk it. You could slag off your previous employer and be like, oh, they sucked. But I really don't think that's a good idea. It might be very satisfying in the moment, though. I've had times when I really wanted to do that of previous employers, but it's probably not going to benefit you in the long run. Yeah, your message got flagged there, Mavi, but I'll allow it because it's a good point. So Mavi says, I ran out of growth opportunities in my previous organization. Sounds much better than they wouldn't promote me. Yeah, yep. It's all about how you word things. So you could say something like, you know, I found myself progressing very quickly through the organization, and the structure just wasn't able to accommodate this progression. So I determined that I could take my rapidly increasing skills and apply them at your company, which seems to have better opportunities for growth. So yeah, basically what Mavi said, rather than they wouldn't give me a raise and wouldn't promote me, because I've certainly encountered that. Right? You end up in a position at your company, and they want to keep you in your current role, and so they hold you down, and so the only way to get out of that trap is to move on. So I've been there. You're too good. You're too good in your current, too good to be promoted in your current role. Yeah, definitely been there. Took me 3 years to learn my lesson, but I figured it out eventually. Drunk Uncle Grandma says every service industry job. Yeah. Yep. Focus on the positives for the new role more than the negatives for the old. Yeah, absolutely. Because then that's going to make that current company feel good rather than have them, question your loyalty at any point. They're going to be thinking more like, yeah, yeah, our company does do a good job about that. Yeah, we stand out, versus, oh man, I wonder what they're going to say about us when they eventually leave. So it's all about mindset and framing. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon, but I'm happy to take any last questions or comments if anybody else has anything they want to talk about. These interview prep type streams are never my most popular streams, right? I never have the highest viewer count for these, but they're some of my favorite ones to do because I see people, grow their confidence. I see people learn things about their own background that they never thought about before. Um, and yeah, I feel like there's a lot of positive that comes out of these, which is why I keep doing them because they're fun. Where is Code says, is learning and streaming the best way to kind of teach as I'm going? So that's up to you. If you like streaming, if you try streaming and you like it, then absolutely do that. um, I would say as long as you're practicing, whatever way you do that, it could be building your own projects, it could be talking to people on the Discord, hanging out in the help channels and helping people that way. That's a great way to learn. You don't have to stream. It's it's all about the repetition. It's about the practice. It's about strengthening those connections in your brain to the concepts. So however you do that, teaching them to your dog, or your significant other, or practicing and talking to yourself as you code. I mean, no matter how you do it, as long as you practice, repeat, establish those connections, you'll be good to go. Maybe you want to stream, and that's fine too. Spaghetti says, I'm curious, in an 8 hours day, how many minutes on average do you spend talking to people at your job? So we communicate mostly via Microsoft Teams, which is a chat client, kind of like Slack. So that's how we do most of our communication. I usually have earlier in the week, we have like our project meetings and our group team meetings. So usually in the beginning of the week, it's a couple hours a day of worth of meetings, just kind of we're communicating with business side customers, smaller team meetings that are project specific. And then usually later in the week, it's more like teams, back and forth teams conversations and email and that kind of thing. So it just depends on the time of the week, really. Mance says, do you have VODs where you go over behavioral questions? Absolutely. Yeah. If you check out my YouTube channel, exclamation point YouTube, I have like 3 or 4 streams where we just spend we just do behavioral questions the whole time. So and that should be in the title of the video. So check those out. But yeah, absolutely we do. And I was thinking we might get to those today, but we ended up talking about other things, which is absolutely fine. So we'll probably do an actual behavioral question stream um, here in the next month or so. I like to do this kind of thing, once a month or so, where we just talk about interview, job, behavioral type stuff. Where is code? Okay, so if your jam is teaching people where is code, um, if you like teaching, then absolutely go for it. So let me tell you, I started out helping people on the Discord voice channels. So I would go over to the Discord, hop on a voice channel. I would see if somebody had a question, right? I would look in the chats on the various channels and look for people with questions. And I would say, like, hey, so do you want to help? You want to hop over to the voice channels and we'll see if we can figure it out. So you don't have to start out in like a formal, big scale stream setup type way. I would start out small. Help a couple people at a time, help some individuals. Um, do it in a way that is not going to put a lot of burden on you at first. And so that way you can just have fun helping people and teaching people. So make it easy on yourself, right? Start small, help a few people at a time. And then if you find you're picking up some momentum, then you can, graduate over to Twitch and start teaching people there. People pretty much had to drag me by my ears to get me on Twitch. But, just make it, however you do it, make it easy on yourself. Oh, thank you, Manst. No worries, where is code? Why have they dragged you? Yeah, I am too. It's worked out well. Alrighty. Any last things we want to talk about? Thank you for the follow there, Spigot and Beansmate and Franklin. Gonna hydrate. Whew. All right. Well, if not, I think we'll go ahead and find someone to raid. And let me get my little raid screen up here. Whoops, that's the wrong screen. Oh boy. Alrighty. No worries, I am Sassy. Glad you got something out of it. All right, enjoy your dinner. Let's find someone to raid. So, ooh, we got some choices today. Um, we've got the omnipresent Lana Lux game development. We've got CM Griffin, always fun. Team Vash, Purple Elf, and then Herr Hotzenplotz. So, any preferences? I'm also open to suggestions, preferably within the software or game development category. Um, Lana or Purple Elf? Okay, I think it's been a little longer since. Oh, Lana's demo comes out in 4 days. Holy cannoli! Um, let's go ahead and read Lana. I just want to see where they're at. Yeah, let's do Lana. Haven't seen them in like I just want to see where they're at in their development. Because especially if their demo's coming out in 4 days, that sounds really cool. All right, here we go. Gonna raid Lana. I will see you all again next Sunday. We'll probably do some kind of another project build next Sunday. So back to our regularly scheduled program of building something, coding something next Sunday. And so I hope to see you all there. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. That's where I post what we're going to be doing in the next stream, as well as any schedule changes. So hit me up on Twitter at Mayan Wolf, and I will see you all again next Sunday. Thank you so much for your time. Raid is starting now. All right, 3, 2, 1, raid. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See you all soon.